This episode of ScavTalk is brought to you by Lethal Gaming Gear. And welcome back to ScavTalk, everyone. Today's episode, we're going to be catching you up, as we usually do, with the Tarkov News Roundup, followed by events in Tarkov, perhaps maybe some PvE talks and discussion. Apparently, it is very popular amongst the player base. What else do we got on the agenda, Giggle?
Yeah, little bit of gun stuff and some just PvP play kind of thing. We'll discuss that towards the end and see. I'm in the sort of tentative exploration, thoughtfulness stage about that. So there's not going to be any strong conclusions, but just kind of some thoughts and what I've seen some other people doing and things like that. So we'll get to it. We'll get to it. But we should begin with the ongoing event. It's kind of funny that so PSG, when they released this new event, it's really like a set of in-game tasks, and people were kind of quibbling, especially in my chat, about the difference between event versus in-game task. Does it really matter how it's labeled? Because on the BSG actual promo, I think there was a picture that they sent, and it was a PKM, I think, and a grenade launcher on the picture, and it said, in-game event or whatever. But it's really just an in-game set of quests. So it's like, is it really an event? But if it sends everybody to the same place, then it kind of is an event. It's like, I don't know. I don't really care too much about the distinction. It's a thing that's happening right now, and it's something that's kind of driving people to do stuff. Yes, it says in arms race in-game event on their little promo banner, and so that began previously, and it's now it's got up. It's available until the 22nd, so that is going to be again after this podcast comes out, or actually on the day. So what does it say? Like 10 a.m. Okay, so yeah, you will have already missed the end of it by the time the podcast comes out, but I actually think it's kind of all right. Like the first parts of it. When did this actually come out? Did this come out after our last cast? It must.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so it was the 16th. Oh, okay. It was recent. It was only Tuesday. Okay, so they basically released this event questline, whatever, and said, it's an arms race thing. The idea being is that it's a Prapor versus Peacekeeper situation. You had a quest on Factory, which was the first one. Well, it was kind of on Factory. It was sort of misleading. So they said, oh, there's scavs that are now in the raid, which have Western gear, basically. It's like they've managed to get Western gear from somewhere, but they've got really low durability. So it's a bit like the Marana event with the fires, that the scavs there had 0 durability guns. It's that mechanic kind of come back. And you had to, kill 10 scavs on Factory, and then it says hand over the found raid Western scav weapons. And what's kind of weird about that is that, as it turns out, the scavs were spawning everywhere, not just on Factory, but the way that the quest is kind of, I don't know, the way that the tasks look, it kind of, you assume that the scavs are only spawning on Factory. At least I did. So Factory was pretty fun. It was kind of popping. But yeah, they were spawning everywhere. They're actually spawning all over the place. Like yesterday I was streaming and there was a couple of scavs with them on streets and random things like this. They're quite interesting. They're like sub 15 durability, which so they're not useful for anything. But they're like two-tone scars with ACOGs on and random stuff. They look a little bit like the PMC guns from PvE a little bit. It's random stuff. There's orgs and a few other things, M700s and whatever. So it's quite interesting. And they will shoot at you with them. Obviously, they don't jam on the third bullet like you do if you're using, but they do shoot at you with them, which is sort of interesting. You're getting 5.56 fired at you by scavs, which is kind of cool. So anyway, this one you had to go and find these scav weapons. The first couple of raids I couldn't find them at all, but then they were spawning. You just had to sort of wait around. The biggest problem with Factory I found, as usual, with killing scavs on Factory is actually quite hard. Which is that other quest? Is it Silent Caliber? I can't remember. It's one of them. I think it's Silent Caliber, where you have to kill, is it 20 scavs and 10 players or something? And I usually do that on Factory. I don't think I even did it this wipe. And that one is you almost always get the scavs done, or so the PMCs done before the scavs. There's just PMCs everywhere on Factory. You normally have to wait a little bit, unless there's somebody who's spawned in naked. Normally there aren't scavs straight away, so finding scavs is actually quite annoying. So I ended up just in loads of PvP at the beginning, and then I was like, we're supposed to be getting these scav guns somehow. So ended up doing that. You could have them spawn on your scav as well. So if you just cycled through your scav, eventually you'll spawn in with a busted, Scar L or whatever, or an M700 or whatever. So you can get a couple from there. And then once you complete this one, there's and like the next one is basically the same thing again, but without the find in raid tag on it. And that means that you can, in theory, take them to the flea market and then sell them, and then people can buy them from under 15 durability and send them on to Peacekeeper. There's not really any other way to get them. So I think I bought like 5 of the, because you have to get like another 10 guns, and it's actually quite a lot. It's easier if you don't go to factory, in my opinion, which is what I was doing. But in the end, I was like, whatever. They're like, 200k or something. I think I bought the last one for like 2 million just because I couldn't be bothered and I wanted to finish the quest and get on to the next part. But I was like, whatever. So you can like, you go on the flea, you put a filter on like max durability 15 and then press go, and then you make sure it's like a Western gun. But they all are, because I don't think anything that's not part of the event, I don't think anything spawns for less than that durability. So they're all like Western guns. You can go and see. I'm actually going to see what they are now. Look. So you just click on weapons as a broad category, and in the cog, you set maximum at 15. Oh, they're really cheap now, actually. Well, there's a couple of them. So there's a few at like 40k, but they've been selling, then it's like 40, 40, 100, 150, 170. So they've been selling at like 150, 170 quite consistently. So you can make like good money out of these weapons. They're actually quite valuable. Like I think I left streets with like 1 or 2 of them just because they're more valuable than a kitted gun in some ways. You take the attachments, you get rid of the actually good gun with the good handguards, whatever. Then you take a scav gun with like 6 durability on it. And normally, and with the scars as well, sometimes you can fold them into like 2x3s as well. Yeah, it's interesting, and because it's not finding rates, you can just hand it in.
So with like, is there like a checks that it specifically, like with the first quest at least, that the weapon specifically came from the scavs? Like you can't just open up a crate and it be a Western weapon and then it will accept that for the found raid.
My guess, because obviously I don't know, but my guess as to how it's coded would be that the weapon has to be a Western gun, and that the durability has to be lower than 15. So it has to be in that regime where the weapon has got like a red outline around the durability box, which you don't really see very often. And it's like anything over 15 doesn't have that. Anything under 15 does. So a rogue gun from Lighthouse, for example, they're like, 50 durability, 60. So that won't count because it's not under 15. I suspect if you took one and you fired enough rounds through it and got it under 15, I suspect it would work because they have the quest checkbox on them.
Dude, okay.
Sort of in the same way that Gunsmith does. Like a finding raid weapon for that quest has the tick, even though you can't hand it in. And then usually you add a part or 2 and then it stops being finding raid, and so it stops. And then when you get it right, it then goes golden tick again. So some people are saying like, oh, I've got a rogue gun, I can hand it in. And then they tried to, and they're like, oh, it actually won't let me. So I think under 15 durability must be a thing that's set in the quest. But I don't think they're tracking this where it came from. I think they're just using its durability as a flag because it's only those guns that spawn in that particular condition. And it's hard to get them that low. Partly just because it's just not worth doing. It's not worth the time because it's just so hard to get them under 15 because they jam so often that you'd like spend half the time like undoing jams rather than trying to actually fire the gun.
If that's the case that you described, it's actually pretty clever using those pre-existing systems, because like I guess they use that from, as you said, Gunsmith, because Gunsmith has like the durability requirements, so they probably use a similar method. That way they didn't have to like spend time rewriting a new line of code and then debugging it, because God knows that could be who knows implications when you add new stuff like that.
Yeah exactly. So that was kind of cool. And then after that, it was like relatively straightforward. I think that's the next one. You went through to like, what's your evidence? So the whole idea was like, I think the rogues were getting hold of like Western guns or something and distributing to the scavs, where they were selling off their like old junk. And it's like a mini feud between Prapor and Peacekeeper, which you could go and read in the flavor text if you really want to. But then you basically had to go and like plant some Wi-Fi cameras. Annoyingly on Lighthouse, which is not great. And that's like one of each of the buildings, building 1, building 2, building 3, which I was like, oh, groan, this is not fun. And I got the perfect spawn. I got pretty much like the grade A spawn. It's the one near to Hillside House and that kind of village. So I just like ran straight over the bridge. And then there was a guy who'd spawned, there's like the terrible spawn where like the 2 people could see each other over in the mountains. It's also quite close to road camp.
Yes.
Yeah, he'd
with
obviously
the lake
spawned
in the
over
center.
there. Yeah, he spawned over there, and he like ran over the mountains, and I heard him, and I fired at him, but he voiped and was just like, yo, 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 and I was like, hey, what's going on? He was like, I'm just trying to plug my Wi-Fi cameras, and I was like, me too. So he like came down the mountain, and we went and did the raid together, which was kind of cool. It was like night raid, so it was like pretty easy. He was a demon with the DVL. Guy knew where all the rogues were, like took them all out. I was like, man, this guy knows what's going on. I'm just gonna be his like CQB protection or whatever. I managed to fail at doing that job because another PMC. Well, it was weird because another PMC came through building 1. So we planted like one. We did the first one at building 3. Then we went to building 1. He was like, let's go to building 1 next. Let's not go to building 2. So I was like, okay. So I just followed him. And we were planting. And then another PMC turns up. And I was like half expecting him to like void the guy and be like, yo, what's going on? We're just like planting cameras like he did with me. But he like fired. The other guy like hesitated. And then I was like, and like I started to shoot. But then he killed my friend. And I killed this guy. I was like, oh, this is a huge mess now. So I'm there with like two players just like dead next to me. I was like, well, I only have one camera to do. But they were both level 60 bears. And my friend included. So I was like, okay, this is another tag for the trophies quest. If he hadn't have died, I'd be I had been one behind because like we're not partied up, so it technically worked. I was like, okay, good. So, I'm like one step closer. By the time that we get to the wipe, I'll have got M61. It'll be it'll be good. We've got what, like a couple of weeks left, maybe. I mean, I'm on 13 out of 20 level 60 bears. So, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. There's a lot of people over level 50 now, but
Giga's like, no, the humanity, my teammate died. Time to loot him, I guess.
Yeah. Such as Tarkov, yeah. I did actually throw his stuff away. And I was like, at this point, like, none of us need the gear. Like, we don't need the money or whatever. Yeah. I'm doing it for the principle of like, we helped each other out. He unfortunately died, and I'm gonna throw his gear, and I'm gonna take the guy who he killed's gear. And that guy, actually, the guy that I killed, he actually ended up coming into chat and being like, oh, hey, you killed me. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, you killed the other guy who's like, I didn't even know him. We were just like randomly playing. We were all just down like lighthouse, just like doing whatever. It's like kind of funny. So cool. So we did that one, and then I think if I remember correctly, I don't think there's any other tasks in between that one and then the one I was doing yesterday, which is you end up having to choose between Prapor and Peacekeepers. You have to like pick a side, and the way that you pick a side is by completing either of their quests, and obviously they're mutually exclusive. You do one and you fail the other. And Prapor's one is kill 3 PMCs on streets, pretty easy. And I believe originally it was in the Lexos area, but it seemed to have changed. And then Peacekeeper's quest was kill Basmatch and kill Gus. And so Prapor's quest was kill 3 PMCs, but there's like I don't know what you call it, like a condition on it where you fail the quest if you kill Basmatch or Gus. So it was that basically ended up like the quest ended up being like, Prapor's done this like dodgy arms deal with like Caban. And Peacekeeper's trying to stop him, and Prapor's like, it's not got anything to do with me, but Basmatch and Gus are like good for my business or whatever, and Peacekeeper's like trying to kill him. So once you do either of those quests, then you join the side of Prapor or Peacekeeper, and then you're just into the kill as many targets as you can with Eastern weapons or Western weapons, depending on whether you're Peacekeeper or Prapor. So now, and then these counters are just going up. So there's like 2 links, one with Prapors and one's with Peacekeepers, and it seems like it said on the blurb like whoever wins, or like it'll allocate the the reward depending on like the points between the 2 or something. I'm not sure if it's so cut and dried, as like it's one wins or the other, because there seemed to be a reward in game for both, but maybe there's something else extra on top depending on who gets how many points. Like, what is it right now? Is it pretty close?
It's actually very close.
2v5. I personally think that this is like fudged. I don't think this is. I think it's manipulated. I don't think it's necessarily real. Like, I think there's been like relatively good evidence in the past that some of these numbers get a little. But the thing is, it kind of doesn't really matter. If it got really skewed one way or the other, players would just pour into that one side, right? This quest is ultimately poorly designed if it was going to be just free flowing on its own. Partly because Caban isn't spawning at 100% rate, which means that Basmatch and Gus aren't spawning at 100% rate, which means that it's hard to kill Basmatch and Gus.
Right.
When it was kill 3 PMCs in the Lexos area without killing Basmatch and Gus, that was actually quite difficult. But killing 3 PMCs for Prapor anywhere on streets is now like vastly easier than killing Caban, no, killing Basmatch and Gus. And that I did that one because I was like, I could just run this. I could run this, but like I don't have all day to run streets. I'm only going to play for like a couple of hours, and I might just not see them, die to them in the raids I do see them, like whatever. And so even though I'd probably rather join Peacekeeper, I'm going to join Prepper because I don't want to just like not end up fulfilling either of them, right? Because like if you decide, oh, I had like basically I had 2 out of 3, and I had the opportunity to go for the bosses, and I was like, oh, if I go for them and I kill one of them, I'm going to cancel out the 2 PMC kills I've already got, go back to 0 with Prepper, and then I then have to find the other one. But like, what if I don't manage to kill Gus or whatever? Then I'm just like, then I won't get to this reward thing, and then I probably won't get the achievement either. So I was like, this is annoying. So I'm just gonna go with the easy route. I just had to kill like one more PMC, so I just like turned around, left Caban alone, and killed somebody else in another raid. So we'll see. So I suspect that Prapor should technically have more kills, in theory. I know some people were saying like, oh, I went in and just killed Basmatch and Gus, like no problem. But getting 3 PMC kills on the streets, in my opinion, in general, for the average person that's playing, is easier than killing Gus and Basmatch, even just on a probability basis. Like you're more likely to find 3 PMCs than you are to find both of them and kill them without someone else having killed them first or whatever. So yeah, that's basically the event, and it's going to go on until Monday, so you can carry on doing the thing. It's almost a missed opportunity that this final stage like isn't anywhere in particular, or there isn't anything more to it. It's just like use the eastern guns, use the western guns. That's kind of fine, but like you don't really have anywhere in particular to go. And scavs count too, so it's like if you want to add the most to the global total, you just want to go and like farm interchange or something. But that's that kind of boring, so no one's going to do that. It would be good if they made, I don't know, a little bit of a extra thing out of it, I think, because now the playbase is a bit unfocused. Like Factory was really fun when that was happening. Streets is still pretty good actually, because I think people are completing like quest number 4 to get onto the final quest. So Streets is still quite good. I've seen reports from other people that like some of the other maps are just dead, like customs or whatever, like no one's playing it. So yeah, maybe it'd have been better if there was a little bit more of a location specific thing. But unfortunately, they can't put Streets because some people can't actually play it, which is annoying. And then maybe they can for the quest, but then they'd have to do the quests together anyway. I don't know.
I mean, I would think there'd be some temptation to like pick Peacekeeper just because you get to like use Peacekeeper weapons to count towards the quests, whereas the other one you have to use, AKs and such, which like are fine, but like historically and typically NATO is kind of like the more late gamey weapons, whereas in general the Eastern are kind of more like early game weapons. I mean, I guess RD, is that even a NATO? That might be a NATO classified weapon? Whatever, it doesn't really matter. But
I think it counted by caliber. Yeah.
Oh, it did. Okay. That seems like an easy way of doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I used the first. I didn't do that many raids. I ended up using the SVD and the AK-74U with like a waffle on it. Which, going back and using that gun, it's like basically got like no recoil. Right? It's very good actually. The 74U. It's just the fire rate's a little lacking. I think that's the main problem. But it's pretty decent. It's a decent little weapon. Actually, right. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of choices, right? There's a lot of choices within them. I'm just like pulling up the quest is called Time Tested for the the Russian one. And it's basically anything in 366 TKM. Oh yeah, oh no, actually maybe you're right. It's 545 by 39, but not the SAG AKs. You can use the ADAR, the AK-101 and the 102. Obviously the TT. You can use 762 by 39, but not the RD and not the mutant. They don't count. So interesting. They have actually distinguished this. 762 by 51,
surprising.
But only the DVL, the T5000 and the VPO 101. You can use 762 by 54, any Makarov, Aggression 9 by 19 stuff, the Ash, most shotguns, but not the M3, the M590A1 and the M870. Yeah, so like okay, they did actually distinguish it then. So I mean, there's still enough choices there. Like in the end of wipe, it's kind of fine. I do like the SVD though. That reaped me yet another bear kill right off the rip as well. Over by the car extract, some guy was coming through, and I was like, "Is someone coming? Is someone going to come?" There they are. BT through the face. It's good. Literally, like, the guy walked out of spawn and just died to SVD straight away. He came in chat as well. He was like level 50 something. He was just like, "Hey, good to meet you, if only for like a fraction of a second. Good to meet you in raid." While my bullet travels through his head. But yeah,
SVD is
it's
a
cool.
banger.
It is a banger, and the fact you can buy BT, it's good. I go loud on the SVD. I'm just like, I don't know, I'm quite in a loud guns kind of mood right now. It's pretty fun. So yeah, that's the event. That's the event. It's good. We did have some Nikita things. We're calling them Nikita leaks. I know in chat people were joking about saying, "Are they really leaks if they come from the top dog in the company?" This is just that's just what the segment's called. Just anything from Nikita. I mean, he's leaking it himself, right? It is a leak. It's something that's not been shared yet, and now it's been shared. So there you go. So he showed. Oh yeah, he did actually. So I was going back and looking through Tarkov TV, and he did actually mention this. I think I hadn't remembered because it's kind of inconsequential, but he said, "Oh yes, finally no clipping of headgear," and he
Yeah, I do remember him
showed
talking about that.
a Ratnik helmet with contact twos. There's a pair of Pack Sports, I think, with a beanie hat on, and also face mask with the glasses as well.
Oh yeah, good catch.
So like it's quite a few combinations of things. It's like, you know, balaclava with the glasses and the headset and the beanie hat, contacts with, you know, face like balaclava and a peaked cap. There's another one, and then a normal balaclava with like the bear cap on it or whatever. Like, I mean, it looks. I honestly couldn't care less, but it's obviously important to Nikita, and it looks pretty tight now that they've, you know, made it a bit better. Like, we were talking about animations the other day because I went and did Lightkeeper, right? And a couple of people in chat were saying, you know, if you do pay attention, the animations on Lightkeeper are actually pretty good. Like they've got him wandering around. They've got his hands like he puts his fingers together like this, and there's like no clipping of any of the stuff. I know it's like a preset animation or whatever, but I don't know. People were kind of appreciating that. Like
Yeah.
they do take their time with attention to detail on stuff like this, even when it doesn't matter, right? And so for people to say they don't care, like they do care. They do because otherwise you wouldn't do this stuff, right? Like, there's nobody asked for this, and nobody cares about this stuff except for probably Nikita himself. So yeah, well, I don't know. Like, apparently these bits are fixed. Must be Nikita's little pet project to fix these things and make it look nice. But like, it's a hard thing. Like, there's so many items and so many pieces of headgear.
Yeah. Because I don't like. Yeah, I mean, I imagine you could do like a system where when you have these sets of items together, then it's going to like cull these aspects, so that way it's not like clipping. You know, whereas like if you remove that item, it like renders the entire balaclava. Let's say, you know.
I have no idea.
I mean
Yeah, I never read
that's
that.
at least what I would think you would do, but I don't know how else you would. But nonetheless, it is just like a. I don't know if there's like a good way of getting around it. It's just like a lot of manual labor.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing. It just feels like quite a hard problem to solve. That's like sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
unnecessary to fix. Like maybe these guys, I'd like the guys who are doing this stuff must have had a bit of extra capacity, I suppose. Maybe they were like finished with all, you know, I don't know which team it is, but you know, the team, maybe it's like, you know, part of the animations team or whatever. They're like, you know, we're done with all the animations for next wipe. You know, we'll like fix up some of these lower priority things and work on some of this stuff. Just tighten it up. Why not? I can imagine that probably the case.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it as like a visual eyesore. As you said, it doesn't really matter, but it is kind of like, you know, they want to keep a certain level of like quality standardization about the game, you know, so like yeah, I think it is very memeable. Like, finally, the game's fixed. Now it's playable again. You know, it's their game. Their their prerogative largely. I just still can't get over how Nikita's still taking like photos, like screen captures in JPEG, and then like putting it through a deep fryer online, and then uploading it to Twitter to get compressed yet again. It's just like it's so heavily compressed.
I know.
Why?
Yeah. You blame Twitter. Blame Twitter. I was going to say something else about this. I don't remember what it was. I'm sure it'll come back to me. I don't remember. I don't remember. Then there was another screenshot that was posted, this time by Dimitri, so not technically a Nikita leak, but a Dima leak. And it is of, I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure. It's some wrecked old building. I originally thought that it was going to be, I don't know, inspiration for the game, sort of like it's almost concepty, you know. And in that dev diary the other day, they went and took pictures of like dilapidated trains and stuff, that kind of thing. And then after thinking about it for a little bit, I thought actually maybe this is from Chronicles of Ridgey. Could be to do with the on-set filming they're doing, like one of the locations that they're filming it in. I don't really know. Because I think that Nikita said Chronicles of Ridgey was coming back
I
super
thought I
soon.
remember
And I
him
think
talking about that. Yeah.
there was one episode, but I mean, it must take them quite a while to make them. So I don't know when we're going to get like a next sort of series of them or whatever. But yeah, it does kind of look like a train. People in chat saying it looks like,
Yeah. Something
you know,
train or, tram or trolley related, and probably more of a train, but
yeah, like a real set with some kind of weird train in it.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Doesn't really tell us too much. But the
Yeah.
leaks have been quite thin on the ground this week, so this is the best you've got. The ruined rubble building.
I assume it's either like, source material or it's us, a bit out of abandoned building that they filmed some stuff in. I have no idea, but
Yeah.
you were telling me that the comments, because a lot of it was in like Russian or what's the caption say?
Oh, yeah. The caption says a fucking romance.
Proper sex scene
That
confirmed.
was like a Google Translate, so I don't know. We'd have to get if there's any Russian speakers in the chat who can tell us. And yeah, people in the chat were speculating in Cyrillic about, oh, is this Chronicles of Ridgey or is this, whatever. So I don't know. I imagine that's like a term for, like a insanely good shot or whatever, like a good looking shot,
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. I would guess.
yeah. Because it's also got a pretty extreme. What is the word I'm looking for? LUT. Like so,
I was going to say contrast, but yeah, I know what you
yeah,
mean.
like a very in photography, like a very artsy kind of like color filter. And yeah, your Giga's right. It's like very contrast. There's like lots of blues and reds that are being like popped um in the scene. So yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
I think we've milked this leak as dry as we possibly could. A bit of this is fine.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to. Oh, the only other thing that I want to say about the event, just
Yeah, go
before we
ahead.
move on, there's like two last little bits to it. The first one was that there was like a pretty game-breaking bug that the event introduced within the first couple of hours of it being released, which was if you actually went into raid when it came in, for some reason, it was giving you all of the negative. I think this is what people were saying. It was giving you all of the negative rep from all of the tasks that you'd failed or something all at once. I don't know. Whatever was going on, it was like tanking people's trader reputation. Some people
Hmm.
had like -2 rep with Prapor and stuff, and one like Prapor 1 got like, yeah, it was bad.
Oh my.
And they fixed it, and then I believe they reverted everybody's levels back to the way it was before somehow. But yeah, I
Hmm.
had lots of people coming to my chat being like, "What about the trader levels? Like, what about the trader levels?" And I was like, "Well, I'm playing and it's fixed." So I think it was literally just the first couple of hours after it got released. There's like some weird bug with the event. Who knows how this stuff works? Again, it's the spaghetti in the background. Like whenever they poke anything, something over here just goes pop. It's like very very crazy. I don't envy them. And then the other section to it, well, apparently everyone has not been reverted yet. Oh god. And then the other part to it is that you may or may not have noticed, I didn't really notice until the guys in Discord picked it out for me, was that everything is really cheap. It's part of it's the arms race, right? They're flooding the streets with their guns, like trying to
Mm-hmm.
capture market share or whatever. So you can buy like weaponry extremely cheap from both Prapor and Peacekeeper. So for example, you can buy the SVD from Prapor for 56k at the moment. I think the
That's
val. What was the val? Because it used to be like 90.
yeah. I'm say that's almost half off.
the Val is like 67k as
Hmm.
well. So like they're very, very cheap. And then there's like a bunch of random barters as well that have also been added. So for example, I think one of the best ones was the M4 with a Reap on it, for 1 O scope and 1 defib. So defibs are like 400k, and O scopes are, I don't know, 80 or something. Yeah, 80. So it's like 480k. You can just buy yourself an M4 with a Reap IR on it, which is one of the craziest buttons we've seen. So that's like clearly a late game thing that they've added. But yeah, like most of the stuff is like super cheap now. How much is let's see. I wonder if the MDR changed or anything like that. Like $686. I mean, that is cheaper than before, right? That's about like 80k. That's not very much at all. So yeah, it's like everybody has masses of money and everything's also super cheap. So things like even cheaper. Like it hardly makes any difference, to be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, to that point, I've now got 99,997,000 rubles. I'm 3k off 100 mil again, despite having 180 mil or whatever it was previously, because I handed in a bunch of the cards to complete that event and then
Right.
waited for the prices to go back down again, which they have. They're pretty much now at like the trader prices for a lot of them. If Therapist buys a red card for like 10.8 million, so it can't go lower than that. So I bought a full set of labs cards when they were like really cheap. And I think the whole thing was like 25 mil or something like that. It's like red and green are the most expensive. It's like 11 and 13 or something. Maybe it was a bit more. Maybe it was like 30 odd. But all the rest are like super cheap. Black's like 2, yellow's like 2 or 3. Like they're so cheap. So yeah, it's that time I'm like entering into my like end of wipe events time where I'm like not selling anything that's funny raid, like keeping all funny raid junk of like all kinds of varieties. It's quite funny actually. Like one of the Ragman quests that you have to do for like the big pockets, which it doesn't look like I'm going to do because you have to kill the goons and all sorts of stupid stuff like that. But one of the things in there is that you have to do is like, oh, hand in finding raid Sanitar's bag, and I was like, I'm so scarred from Terror Group Trail. I have Sanitar's bag already in my inventory because like I got it and was like, I'm not going to sell this because they're going to ask for it at some point. So it's quite funny, just like the Tarkov paranoia. Like the end game, it becomes like, gotta catch them all Pokemon style. Like
Hoarding
have 2 of every
simulator.
finding raid item. Yeah, just hoard every item, everything. You might need it. You might need some really weird and obscure melee weapon, or like it's just the whole thing is just so screwed. So you need to do the full collector and get one or two of like everything. Which is kind of always was the case with dailies, but for these end of wipe events, like they're just such a pain. So we're prepared. So I've got all the labs cards now. They're all set in my stash. Collecting random items. We'll see. We'll see if it ends up working out.
One interesting kind of like tangent or like slightly related that I thought maybe worth like talking about for a second is because the flea market is like flippable now. I think one of the consequences of that it feels like pricing like it's more extreme, let's say. And that my suspicion based off previous wipes is like early in the wipe things should be a bit more expensive. I don't know now that there's a lot of bans compared to previously, but now I'm starting to recant that. But the more important latter part is I feel like a lot of the pricing will be much lower because you have an increase of supply effectively, right? Just with the natural aspect of both trader flipping and being able to like fountain rate is like not even a thing anymore. So if you kill off a player, I guess you can't drop items anymore, but whatever the case may be, you put it in your container, you die. It's like it's still just as good. So yeah, I just wonder how that's gonna like play into sort of like the economy, longevity, health of the game. Like I feel like because it is a bit more accelerated, the I'm trying to think of like a good example of something that typically you would have to, I guess, like the AACP maybe, but something like that might be actually because it is sort of like S tier and everything else is like A tier and then there's like F tier. There's not like it's not that well distributed, but because of something like that, it might actually be relatively expensive. But my point is like you as a player previously the only way to get it was to do this, you know, arduous quest line. You know, it was like level 50 or 45, whatever it is. You know, you got to have all these prerequisites, and you got to go and change, and or it's not even interchange anymore. It's like booze or what? I don't even know what it is. They keep changing. Stop changing. There's too many gosh dang changes in these quests.
Yeah, it's even hard for me to keep track. I was like, I can't remember what it was the other day, and I was like, where do you even get this from anymore? I think it was SP6, and I was like, how do you even buy this now? And I was like, oh, it's capturing outposts. Okay, like it's not a caliber that I use
Yeah,
very often. So
yeah,
yeah, no, but it definitely does. It's like with the spear. We saw that exactly with the spear. They were like over 500,000 rubles, and then now they're not because people get them and then sell them, and then you die with yours, and then someone else sells yours, and then you buy it back on the flea, and then so there's just this like constant churn. So
yeah.
yeah,
Because there's
there's a
also
lot.
like the constant churn also of, you know, the longer you play the game, the more you like progress. Specifically, the hideout and your scav rep. Like in theory, you know, scav is not like a guarantee, but it's more like a range, output range. You could come back with 0 rubles. You could come back with whatever you could fit in your scav backpack or whatever you get. You know, tea bag, God forbid. But you know, whereas like the hideout, it's pretty much consistent. You know, there's like a
Yeah.
very formulaic, very because you are like crafting a lot of times items that are used in other crafts, you know, like wires, for example. Um, it is pretty like consistent in terms of what you're going to get back. But regardless, you get the Bitcoin farm in of itself, right? So you have like this like as you keep playing, you know, the time growth of like players cash is like kind of grows literally as well, which then
Yeah.
like makes the supply less relevant. You know, it's like even though this item is in like high demand, like the AACP, players' passive income has exponentially grown or linearly grown, whatever the case may be. So it's like
Yeah.
not as, and I just wonder how much it may affect like sort of the quote unquote longevity of the wipe slash economy. I don't know how like relevant it is, but just something I was thinking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think these days that's pretty much dictated by leveling and the traders, the bans and the, the progression. I think
Hmm.
that's really it. Money is not really it's not the limiting factor. I think just think it's very hard to balance it around cash per se. Because yeah, you either not like even the economy now where the prices are quite inflated, for that to catch up with the like end game players. I'm not even necessarily saying the best players. I'm saying the end game players. It's just not an issue. Like I think cult termites were like SAS drives. I bought a couple at like 250K. I'm talking about like a
Mm.
single armor plate, and I was like, it's slightly painful for my regular Tarkov experience mind, but also it doesn't matter either.
Yeah.
Like I'm still going to buy that, and so is everybody else because it's by far the best piece of protection in the game, and it's being paired with a 400K gun or whatever. So it's like they really would have to start getting up to 500,000 like plus before people start thinking like, do I really want to spend that on like the one piece of armor just for each raid? Like it's got to come into some kind of like realm of your overall like stash value before it starts to make you think twice, right? It's like if you've got 150 mil and this thing's 250K, you're like, I don't really care. If you've got 150 mil and it costs you like 2 mil to buy the termite plate, you're like, you know, that's like 75 raids or whatever. Like that that's not like it's not like you're going to run out of money necessarily, but it's like, oh, you could actually, the money might actually start going down. I think that's the important part because even when things are 250,000 rubles, because a Bitcoin still sells for 850K, you win some raids, you lose some raids, you lose your stuff, you get some other people's stuff, you sell it, and then the Bitcoin comes out and it's just like it's just the leveler, right? And it means that you're always making money no matter what. When people start losing money and the money starts going down because the prices are so high, that's the only time that I think you'd actually change player behavior because
Mm.
people like to see number go up. And even if they have massive stacks of money, starting to see that number drift down again,
Right. Right.
it changes the mindset slightly. Like, I started losing money the other day because I was playing Factory. and because you just the deaths come so fast, right? You die, and then you die again, and then you die again, and then you die again, and you're like, okay, like, you know, I'm actually just eating through. You know, I've got like stocks and stocks and stocks of plates, and after playing 2 sets of factory or whatever the other day, I was like, oh, you know, I'm actually starting to like, I might actually have to start crafting GAC plates again. You know, it's like something like that, which just hasn't really been an issue before. I just stopped crafting them for ages. And again, like, oh, I've actually got to run out of cult termites. Like, you can only buy 2 per reset, and I might actually run out here. This is stuff like that. So yeah, so it's really that. It's like more about like how much you can stockpile, and then the trader levels, and the money thing is like kind of secondary unless the prices do go really crazy. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I mean, the only way that you can restrict this and make it like more sensible. I don't think money's ever going to be an ultimate limiter of things outside of the early wipe. It's like an early game resource, and then later on it'll be like,
Yeah, it feels like
if
that.
we do what we hope they're going to do, it'll be like, you know, class 6 plates are only on bosses, or they're in Kibba or whatever. Because lots of people have said about this, like, they're too easy to get, like Bastion plate barters, and some of these things were added later to kind of spice the wipe up a bit to get people to use the end game stuff, and that's cool, that's fine. But I think now that it's been in for 3 months or something, everyone's like, okay, every single person I fight has a spear, they have a bastion, they have this class 6 plate on, they have the Death Shadow mask, they have an AACPC with a cult termite in the front. It's like 50% of players, like, if especially if they're above level 50, they're almost all wearing that. Like, and I mean, I'm wearing it too, because it's like, why not?
So yeah, people are wearing the AACP. Like,
oh yeah,
you do, okay? Because yeah, I was curious
some
because
people are, yeah.
you kind of like almost create a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like you put out the information, you know, like you do the research, and it's like true. Like technically, this is the best thing, but like let's say, for argument's sake, it's only like 3% better than the other comparable things. But because you put it out in the video and the algorithm, and you know, it gets views, it just like becomes sort of like reality, you know.
In fairness, I would say actually that the ACPC isn't on every other player. Like, that's actually probably the piece of kit that is less used, I would say, because a lot of people are just kind of lazy. Like, they put the, like, everyone puts the Bastion plate on and runs that with the Death Shadow, because it's just like, you just buy them and it's easy. But there is a significant number of people that just can't be bothered with the armor system, and they just, and lots of people are still wearing class 5, amazingly, and lots of people are just wearing like a Gen 4 or a Karund or a Bagari or whatever, because you just buy it and just stick it on your player. So a lot of people just play like that, which is interesting. I mean, there's quite a few examples that I have of fights that I have won that I probably wouldn't have if I wasn't wearing the armor I was wearing, and if they had worn class 6. You know, if I just bought it, I probably would have died. But because I didn't, then I survived the first initial salvo, and then they died because I'm using armor. I'm using ammo that's like basically geared for fighting against class 5. You know, mostly it's like M62 with 44 pen, or the spear hybrid ammo with like 47 pen. It's like they're perfect for fighting against class 5. They're not that great against class 6. They're okay, but as I've documented, you know, in all the videos I've done, there's like, you have to shoot somebody 5 times in the chest to kill them with class 6 and a class 3 armor on underneath, which is a lot, right? Like, when they die in maybe 2, but definitely 3 shots from me. And yeah, there's still headshots, of course, but it's just interesting. There's just like a lot of situations where that's, you know, I've survived. And that's like, we're talking about meta stuff as well. Like, not everybody's running the spear, not everybody's running. You know, you run into other people, and I do kind of feel sorry for them. Like, I got jumped by a guy with the P90, and he just like, he sprayed me down like crazy, but it was SS190. It's like, what's the pen, 37 or something? Like, you're just not getting through the class 6. You're just
not happening.
It's just not gonna happen. You have to shoot me in the face. But you know, you can hit me here and the neck, because I don't wear, you know, I don't wear neck protection. So it's like, you can hit me, and there's this square there. Here, it's just gonna bounce right off. You know, you might ricochet if you hit the sides. Like, from here and down, it's all class 6. Like, it's class 6 on the sides, class 6 on the back. You know, it's rough. It's really rough. So yeah, so I don't know. I think that will be the turning point, is if they put the plates in Kibba, put them on the bosses, you know, remove class 6 again, so it's not everywhere, and we'll see what they do with ammo. I don't know. It's gonna be, you know, either armor is gonna be like, well, the thing is, I guess a lot of people, it'll just be like it is now, and like M62 and hybrid will just be better, unless they lock those as well, which maybe they should. I'm not sure. These things are all like interconnected, right? It's like, it's hard to get the ammo and the armor balance kind of right. Like, it's sort of annoying in some ways, because I feel like the ammo and armor balance is actually kind of good right now, because armor works, is expensive, but works. and the best you can buy straight off is like hybrid or M62, but they're not like amazing against class 6. So they're good, but they're not amazing. They're not like two-shotting stuff like M61. So like that balance, like in and of itself, is kind of okay, but just the actual diversity of kits is not really that good. So, and the Bastion helmet is like too much. I think that's too much. So many people have been talking in my Discord about like the impossibility of sniping people now. Like it's so difficult. And if you do want to snipe people, you basically have to use the SV98 and you have to use SMB. It's like really the only thing that you can use, because like M61 is like almost impossible to get for most people. M62 is a tracer, so people see where you're shooting from. So you have to use M80, and that's just, you just can't kill people with the Bastion like plate on. You just can't.
I mean, you could, I guess, technically hit him in the top of the head, yeah, like the very tippy top, or is it not? Is that, am I mistaken about the hitbox system?
The actual Bastion plate is top of head and nape.
Oh, so no, the whole thing is actually covered.
This, yeah, exactly. It's like the head, top, and nape. So it's basically like a TC 2002.
So it's effectively replaces the entire helmet.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because head, top, and nape is the Bastion.
Okay.
Head, top, and nape is the plate. Yeah, so
okay.
it replaces the whole helmet with class 6. Class 6 with class 4 underneath. Never mind.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I mean, it's, you know what's funny is I used to never really like the Bastion just because like the penalties with it, and then you had to like buy. It was actually probably more of a like lazy thing, if you will, because you had to buy the 2 parts for it. Yeah. And now it's like even worse because there's like a barter. So like you're gonna be like the most economically efficient. You got to like do the barter and then for like the plate. But yeah, as someone was saying in chat, you know, I actually preferred the U-Lock more because it had the ear protection and it was also just like a lot cheaper. But now that the U-Lock is like, because it's not sellable by Ragman anymore,
it's
I believe.
Not, but because of the recircling around the, I mean, it's 120k now on the flea.
Yeah,
that seems expensive though. There's lots of like red offers here, so I think that's a high price point. Can actually, I can go and have a look while you chat.
So it says you get the tan one on Ragman. They also add if you hate yourself.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I do, but I still will not buy the title. I hate myself that much, I guess. But anyways, my main point is like
doesn't really go under 100, yeah.
Yeah, and I think because Ragman used to sell for like 86k, I don't know. Because there was like a fixed price on the market, it meant that resellers of Foundry Raid U-Locks Black were, you know, not that much more expensive. So anyways, it was just like but now that they've gotten rid of that, and like U-Locks are the price they were, and I even think like earlier in the wipe too, they were like much more expensive. It kind of just makes sense to go for the Bastion, and especially if you have the barter for the plate, because it's just like an egg, which wasn't too expensive, you know, versus buying the plate outright. I mean, maybe that's changed a bit now, but I don't know.
It probably has. But like, because the Bastion is like 66k, and you can buy that one from Ragman. See?
Oh yeah.
So that's not actually too bad. The egg,
it's pretty cheap.
The eggs are now right now they're like 99,000.
Oh, okay, that's kind of expensive. Because they were probably like 60-ish when I was playing.
Yeah, but now the actual plate, if you want to buy a plate off the flea, because most people just I don't know, just lazy and buy them off the flea. That's 200k. It's like double the price. It is 2 eggs a lot. Actually, it's 2 eggs for the barter.
But I mean,
so it's 200,000 for the barter as well.
To be fair, you know, that sounds like a lot.
6 helmet.
Right, exactly. It's like, you know, it's like, do you want to buy an Alton that's like impossible to actually get a hold of? Well, I guess now that Foundry Raid's not a thing anymore. But anyways, then you got to deal with like the visor and all the shenanigans, the visibility, the turn rate. Is there?
I didn't realize they added this back. I was like, oh, it's not, you know, you can't buy it anymore. But I didn't realize you can do calibration from mechanic and get access to a barter on Ragman 4 for an Alton. So you can technically buy them now, which I didn't realize. But yeah, you have to eliminate 20 PMCs from over 100 meters away. So I can't imagine that many people have done it.
Yeah, but like, who wants to use that because you can't wear ears? Yeah. It's class 5 everywhere, which I guess is like the trade-off. But yeah, having class 6 on the head's pretty good. I think that's pretty valuable, I would say. Just the ability to like tank a random headshot from whether it's like up close or far away. That seems really strong.
And I do. I've tanked many. I've tanked many a headshot, even just yesterday. You know, I'm using one every raid, and it's amazing the amount of headshots you bounce off because it's like half of your head. So people aren't really aiming for your face, and most of the time it's just impossible to do so. They just muscle memory towards their head, and then 50% of the time, off it goes. You know, doink, off into the sky. Whatever it is, M62, hybrid, whatever, just pings right off. They're terrible to repair, but I mean, the ceramic, so they're not very good for repairing, but they are very good. Very powerful.
Some people are saying in chat about raising the max trader level to like 52 and or adding an additional trader level, which I've always felt like, you know, a 5th trader level would be nice. Like I was thinking raise it from, is it 42 or is it 45 now?
42 with Ragman.
Okay.
It's because 45 was the old Intimidate. It still is the Intimidator Prapor quest. There's like a couple of things that they're not on a trader level per se, right? Because it's like it's Prapor 4, but you have to be level 45 to get the quest that unlocks the thing.
Gotcha.
To do the craft. So it's like that kind of is like a trader level, sort of, because you need to reach the level to even open the quest out. It's like more granular access outside of the trader levels themselves. Because the trader levels are level gated, but then the quests are level gated. So it's like gives another lever to pull. So that's kind of how they've done it, right? Same with M61. Can't do that until you're at least level 55, because you need to start doing the quest to kill players above level 50. And as we said, it's quite a clever quest because there's an implicit link with the player base and the stage of the wipe, right? If you're level 55, but it's 3 weeks into the wipe, you're not getting level 50 plus dog tags because no one else is level 50 plus.
Yeah.
So it's that's quite cunning. I quite like that one. The M61 gate is actually quite good. The only thing that I would say about this, though, about adding other trader levels and blah blah, so like, you really want to be able to buy this stuff on the traders. Like, I just disagree with that thing for the top 10% of stuff.
You're saying you don't? Well, I missed that first part.
I don't want them on the traders. I don't want this stuff on there. I just don't.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, even with the way M61 is, like, that's fine, I guess. Like, it's okay. But it would be, I don't know, like having the Bastion plate and whatever, like putting it to level 60. Like, that's fine, but I feel like it needs to have some achievable way of getting it every now and then in raid. You know, maybe you have to try, or maybe you stumble across them. I don't know. It just feels like one of those things. I mean, also, it's probably one of those. It should probably be banned on the flea, right? That's for a start. Not that really matters. Because again, that locks it up to that. Yeah, we're like, what else can you buy at level 6 other than side plates?
I was gonna say that's a good point. Yeah, now that we think about it, because the front plates themselves are banned, but not the effectively head plate. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
But I'd rather and I would like them to do this intelligently, though, not in the just we're gonna put them in the raid loot pool, and then, you know, it was like the Juk 6, the green ceramic armor, right?
The zebra armor.
Was like, it was technically in the loot pool, right? It was technically in the loot pool somewhere. Did we ever see it? Like, of course not, because to stop the whole game being flooded with them, the spawn rate of that plus the slick plus the Zabralo plus the hex grid or whatever needed to be quite low. So it's like distributing them across like every stash and every scav dead body on the map is just like not really a good thing. Like the Kibber one for plates is perfect because it's like a specific place that you go. You don't always get them. It's quite involved to get there. You can't just like loop run it. Like, you have to have power. You have to have the 2 keys. You know, you turn them on. Then you have to leave. It's like right in the middle of the mall. It's a right pain to get in and out. It feels like a mission in and of itself. Like, if it was just a room in Shoreline, people would just like loot run that and then leave. You know, I don't know. It's quite good that it's in a place that's kind of secured. It's almost like you'd want there one to be, you know, in the bunker of reserve, but with power turned on. Like, that would be another cool place. Or like, you know, it's in the train station after you turn the power on. So you have to like go somewhere and do the thing to go and get like the thing. You know,
maybe when the train comes in on reserve, it's like just loose spawns of like plates or whatever you want on the train itself.
Maybe. I don't mind that. That's kind of okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of forces you just to kind of like wait, which I don't really like. That's like it's all right. It's all right. But I'd rather it be a bit more active. You know, it's like if you want to try and just speed run from a lever in dome and get down into wherever, whatever, then like that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to cover a lot of ground and you might just die doing it. Like yeah, you might get people just hatching running it. In fairness, but there's quite a lot of time spent. You could hatchet run Kibba in theory. But it's just like there's lots of scavs around. And it's kind of hard to do. I just feel like it would be good, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, here is the one place you go for this one thing. It's like here's the place. I like Kibba because it's like here's a place that the plates spawn. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's like any old plate. It's like class 4, class 5, class 6. You get a mixture. Like I actually really enjoyed running a different sets. Like I've got this class 6 ceramic that I've never seen. I never would normally use that, so I'm going to use that for raid or 2, and then I'll swap over to this. This class 5 one that I'm putting in the back. Like that's kind of cool. And in the same way, it would be nice if I don't know, say reserve had like it had like a high level attachments like area, whatever. And so you might get an SE5, you might get an RVG black, which is not really worth that much. It's like a random assortment of things. A little bit like Black Room for Stims. It's like the same kind of thing. Oh, you got to have the special key card, and everybody goes there and fights over it, and you have to scan the thing, and then it's locked off, so it's like kind of hard to get out of. You can get trapped inside, like all of that stuff. Like Black Room is really well designed as well, and it's a very specific thing. You go there to try to farm, SJ9s for the quest or whatever, but you don't
Yes.
always get one. Like it's for having a pool of like an item type. I actually really quite like
I
that.
see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because it's not always amazing, but sometimes you find a spear in Kibba, sometimes you find a mule in whatever, or like sometimes you find I
Mm-hmm.
don't, that kind of thing. I think is where we should head rather than putting more stuff gated behind traders. You can have both, so you can be like, okay, at level 60 plus, you get guaranteed access to maybe something, but I still feel like trader one cycle on the trader is like still too short for a lot of this stuff because you can just stockpile. So I don't know, it's hard.
I see what you're saying though, because this was kind of one of my issues with like weapon crates, for example, is like you're effectively hitting like a loot box
Mm.
that's in game. There's like thousands and thousands of items, but you're probably only like really, excited for like, I don't know, 10 of them. It's somewhere between like 10 and 50. I don't know. I feel like 100 might be too
Exactly.
high, but it's like, oh, I got the 1911 magazine. Yay. I got like a just like so much. I got a gas block that I can't do literally anything with, which was like one of the things that I would really like for them to do is like take some of these items that are like completely and utterly useless, like the gas blocks. There's
Hmm.
just like, I don't know. I guess maybe it could be like, well, what if I find a really good gas block that's like a high trader level, and it's like, okay, yeah, I don't know. But some of the ones like an MCX gas block, no one needs that ever. You could just buy it from the trader when you get there. Like you can't. I don't even know if you could buy an MCX that doesn't have a gas block installed, because then it wouldn't be functional, which you can't sell. Or no, you can't sell non-functioning items on the flea. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just there's just like I feel like there's got to be some type of optimization you can do it to where it feels better, because as you're saying is like Kiba feels good because it's a pool of very specific items. It's not just like a giant, like the weapons on the walls is like a pool. There's like a specific set. Black Room is like just stems. Marked Room is largely, cases, weapons, and ammo, and like sometimes depending on the marked room, there's like some loose barter items. But largely it's those things, right?
Yep.
Interchange, the tech tech rooms, it's like it's tech items, yes, but sometimes there's VPXs and GPUs and things. Like those things, like you get those high rolls, but it's not like a pool of a bajillion items, so it's like a 0.11% chance to get the high roll for the really valuable item. And I think they could like do more of that in a way that's like kind of more, yeah, I don't know, because like the Zuck, for example, I think previously you could only really get it in like um caches, which is just like
Yeah.
caches themselves are like, so it's a
Caches are weird now.
one giant, they are weird now, yeah. Because didn't they tweak them some time ago because they took out like like I don't know. It's like what did
They
they
spawn
do?
dynamically now. That's the main issue.
That's
Because
right.
they spawn dynamically, you can't really run them like you could before,
Yeah.
which is fine. Like that's okay, but it's just different now. It's just different now because like people used to do those runs systematically and go through
Yes.
on interchange, whatever. But like now half of them are missing, and apparently, I think if you look it up on the wiki, I think if you go like customs cache, I think there's loads. Let me just go. Let's see. I think there's a whole section for it.
While you're looking that up, the other thing I was gonna say is like I definitely felt what you're describing about Kiba and like Black Room with particularly Streets March Room, the one where you could glitch into.
Mm.
Because it's like it was such a hot spot and it was like, oh my god, if you get in there, you could get a spear. And like early wipe, the spear was like it was like good-ish if you could get ammo for it. But it was, it was a new weapon. Like everyone wanted to try it. It was like you could sell on the flea, so it was like worth a lot. So it was like a high ticket item. Like that was a lot of fun. Like it was, yeah. I could just farm a spear and sell it, or I could kill the guy that glitched into streets and you go to loot him. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, we got a spear. I got to get out of here. That was fun.
Yeah, I didn't find it in particular, but there's a lot of caches I think on customs. I think most of them are still, well, I don't know if this is updated, but I remember seeing that there was like loads more than I thought there were. Anyway, but like
Mm.
because they're not spawning there all the time, like you kind of remember where they are sort of, and then check them every now and then. But it's like kind of yeah, bit tricky. They're not always there. It's not as systematic as it used to be, which is kind of good. Stops people from farming them just like ran around, and but they're just almost too hard to find now that they're not always there.
Mm.
So people aren't running them, so people don't know where they are. So you stumble upon them once in a blue moon, which is fine. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess just the one other thing, jumping back to an earlier, and then we'll move on, is talking about the economy as we, move forward. And I think with like the going back to like the pricing later in wipe, I guess like one line of thought is because money is less of an object, therefore money, items as the wipe progresses should get more expensive, which I think is relatively true. How much
Yeah,
that actually matters is whatever. But I think an important thing to consider is like because the way the tax system works on the flea market, there's kind of like a upper cap, for items. Like if you list certain items above, like to have a price, you'll pay more listing it than you would making profit for it. So there is like a cap on these things, and it's like
yeah,
kind of unfortunate because there might be actual like if there wasn't there should be a tax, but the way it's set up, it uses the internal handbook price or the trader price or something as part of its calculation, whatever. But devoid of that, like the actual price may be, maybe the Colt Termite would sell for, I don't know, half a mil or a mil if, you could sell it for that in a profit. Whereas like if you probably try to sell it for a mil, you probably pay like 80% in
yeah.
taxes, you know? Like I wonder how much do you have a Colt Termite you could list real quick?
Oh yeah, because they're not. I was thinking like, oh, I don't have one find it free, but I'm like, oh, of
It
course, it
doesn't
doesn't matter
matter.
anymore. Oh no, but you can't because it's class 6. You can't even put it up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Terrible example. L.
it's banned. So
I fell off.
Bastion
Cringe.
plate,
Yeah. Like what half a
Bastion helmet
mil?
plate.
Let's start there. Just curious.
So if you put it up at the normal price,
Mm-hmm.
200,000 rubles. And I don't have Intel 3, by the way, because I never got that second labs items. This is like normal pricing. Only 10k. At half a mil, it's
Oh, okay.
35k. A
Okay.
million rubles, it's 100,000 to list it.
That's actually really reasonable.
Quite
So yeah,
reasonable.
okay.
12 million rubles, though. It cost me 7 million rubles to list it.
I-
100 million rubles.
See, there is an
It's
upper cap.
245 million rubles to list it. Yes, because they've got this weird exponential thing, which ends up, costing
Yeah.
more the higher it goes. It's very weird.
Oh, Sat saying they basically removed the tax. I do think I recall them changing the tax formula at some point.
Yeah, they made it lower, I think, or they bumped up a ton of the items. I don't remember exactly what
Yeah.
happened.
Oh yeah, because there was a lot of gripes about like selling Tagilla, or not Tagilla, the Taiga like knives and like red cards and things like
Oh yeah,
this.
I mean it was crazy.
Yeah, because you basically couldn't, you just couldn't make a profit at the price they were like going for. So it was like either you sold to the trader or you just used it. So they like reworked the tax. So yeah, maybe that's actually a non-issue now. What I was describing since the rework. That'd be interesting to know. I have to
Yeah,
like find a
maybe.
very specific thing, but anyways, moving on. Um, it's probably spent a bit more time than anticipated on that, but I just thought it was a fun little
Yeah, that's right.
chit chat.
Fine. Okay, so so PvE. PvE. PvE is very popular. We knew this, now that they
I
have
was kind of
introduced the
surprised.
local server thing. I mean, yes and no. I mean, there's lots of. I'd be interested to know just how many people are actually playing it. Now, Pestily did a poll on Twitter, which it's got its flaws, the methodology based on
Sure.
the people, like what the bias is here. There's the people that are following Pestily. It's the people who are on Twitter in particular, and it's a particular time in the wipe as well, right? So it's actually pretty much a third for each. Which escape from Tarkov game mode do you primarily play? PvP, PvE, or quit or don't have game? So as people have mentioned in the comments, it's right at the end of the wipe, so lots of people are not playing anymore. The player base is at an all-time low, in terms of the wipe cycle. Obviously, like usually when BSG, we've looked through the analysis before of the stats that BSG produce at the end of a wipe. You can guesstimate that there's probably 200 to 300,000 concurrent players on day 1, 2, 3 of the wipe, as people just come back for the first couple of weeks, whatever, and then in the last couple of days, then looking at the numbers from number of people accepting the quests for the events and things like that, there's somewhere in the region of like 15 to 20,000 players at the end of a wipe, right? It's like 10% of the player base towards the end. Very, very roughly. Like, it just gives you sort of a sense of scale of the numbers. So most people have already quit. This post, interestingly, was seen by 217,000 people, of which only
It's a lot.
35,000 actually bothered to vote. So
Yeah.
we've probably got what's about 15% voting rate,
Well, the
which,
sorry, I
you
was
know,
just gonna add. There's also like I'm seeing it and I can't vote, so
yeah.
there's that aspect too.
Yeah, so it was only on for a certain amount of time. There's also no option for both. There's
Mm.
quit or don't have the game are both in the same category, so like it's not necessarily as granular as you'd like it to be. But it does just show the popularity of PvE, especially now. And it sort of has led to a lot of interesting things. Like there's lots of people who are talking on Twitter at the moment about PvE's killed the game. PvE's killed
Huh?
Tarkov. Um, the raids are dead. Like everyone's playing PvE. Like PvP is done. And lots of other sort of level-headed people being like, it's always like this at the end of the wipe. Like don't
Yeah.
worry about it. You also, my personal take was you got to play like where the event's happening. So if you play on streets, you'll probably meet more people because people are actually trying to complete event tasks on streets and factory and those kind of places. So you've kind of got to lean into the events, even if you're done, right? You can't expect to run around on Shoreline now and get like tons of PvP. I don't know, but like I think to blame it on PvE people leaving the wipe to go and play PvE instead, I think is short-sighted because those people who are playing PvE now, I think only a very small fraction of those people would still be playing the PvP version because they love the game that much. I think the vast
It's hard to
majority of them
say.
would have just left. It's hard to say. That's me speculating, of course, and it's almost impossible to actually poll for that either without the biases getting in the way or whatever. But just given the drop off in the player base, I think the people who are still playing PvP, like not everybody, but I think a good portion of the people who are still playing PvP at the end of the wipe probably are still just carrying on playing PvP, and it's probably brought back a lot of people who are playing PvE. But the timing is very interesting because by the time the wipe comes through, PvE will have been out for a while, and people will have stopped leveling. The beginning of the early wipe is the
That's
funnest part, and that's
true.
PvE as well. And I kind of enjoyed. I have just haven't had time to play it more, but I've kind of enjoyed the time that I spent in PvE so far, and the small number of raids I've done. it was interesting, and I can see why people like it. And you're early wipe, and you're looking for your items and doing your hideout and all this stuff. Right? It's the early wipe experience. But after another month or so, people have slightly higher levels. You know, their characters kind of getting established. They're onto some of the maybe more annoying tasks from a PvE perspective. You have to like kill PMCs, but it's like AI and blah, blah, blah. And then the wipe will hit, and it might actually end up being that a lot of these players jump back to PvP for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever it might be, and then go back to PvE afterwards once the buzz of the wipe's gone away. So it kind of gives people like a home after they're bored of the PvP server. So I don't know, it's an interesting conversation. It's like each person, like some people would have been playing PvP begrudgingly, but now are playing PvE. Some people would have quit, but are now playing PvE. Some people are playing PvE, but they're going to come back for the wipe. Some are going to play PvE, and they don't have time for the wipe, so they're not going to bother. Some people have quit altogether over the Unheard drama. It's like there's so many different types of player, and all the different people have got their view on whether they're coming back or not or whatever. But the long and the short of it is that PvE is very popular, which is great. To be honest, like it's good. I think more people are playing within the Tarkov universe now than they probably ever have been at the end of a wipe. Like, it must be if you add them all together.
I just can't get over that opening statement, or that you repeated from others, is that PvE is at an all-time high, and then random person on Twitter, Tarkov is dead, they're killing the game. No, it's like those two things are not like what they really mean is PvP Tarkov is dead, or the main game. It's like, but it's just like, I don't know, it's just such a funny thing. I do wonder how much this will change, as you've alluded to, and like even furthermore chats already gone about, is there is, since PvE doesn't wipe, it's eternal, at least as of right now. Like next cycle that we're talking about.
Nikita's special present. Boop.
Oh. I mean, there's always that, but assuming things stay the same, if they go to the, once we get to this next phase, like, let's say the wipe happens in a month, and then we're in January waiting for the next update. People are already like level 50 in PvE. They're getting kind of bored of it because, as you said, early wipe there's so many things to do. You get all the stuffs. So I wonder if like you'll see more of a significant drop off over time. And that's without dropping in another tangent. It's interesting too because the flea market is active. Like there's a player versus player element to PvE, but only in the flea market. So, but because it never wipes, like, how is that going to impact the market? Like, I don't know. It's also like a different, smaller player base. There's
Maybe
so
not.
many things. Yeah, there's so many things going on here. But in general, I'm just kind of surprised because I thought PvE would be popular because I've seen, there's obviously a market for it, of SPT and everything else. But I don't know. I guess I just kind of like see the core audience kind of like geared more towards PvP, but that may just be the optics of it, because if all I'm seeing on Twitter is streamer personalities who only play PvE and are only interested in PvE, then that's like heavily skewed one way, where in reality, the common man, he just wants to, play PvE, just have a good time, not get frustrated over Giga Chat or, Hacker Man.
Exactly. The Hacker Man thing is valid, right? Like and like even my usual stance on it, which is most of the time you just can't tell.
Yeah.
When you know that there aren't any, it's just different.
Yeah.
There aren't any. It's just you and your buddies. So I don't know. It's just, I think the experience is more consistent. You know what you're getting involved in, right? And you know what you're getting into, and you know what you're getting out of it. And you get those highs and lows, and then you don't have like your experience robbed at any point by maybe something like you don't even know. Like it might almost be better if you did know cut and dried, like, oh, that was a cheater, so like don't worry about it. But then like if you're in,
true,
and some people are like infected by the cheating syndrome, and I get it, I understand, right? Where it's like everything feels sus, like nothing feels right, and it's just people get like that, and it's like in PvP, there's none of that stress. Like if you're a person that's
Yeah.
prone to thinking that lots of things could be sus, or it bothers you that like you don't know either way, and that any of them could be sus,
Mm-hmm.
you know that that's not going to be the case. So I understand why people like it. So yeah, so it's just quite interesting. We'll have to see what happens. Like you might be right. Maybe there'll be more of a drop off on PvP now that there's on the PvP server, I should say. There'll be more of a drop off on the PvP server now that people know that PvE exists. But it always had a big drop off anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like I'm not sure. As I said, I'd still probably rather people be in the Tarkov kind of sphere than leaving and doing other stuff. And like people are more, I actually think people are more likely to come back to the game. There's another couple of points in chat basically saying that people who are like gone from Tarkov literally for all eternity, forever, they were never ever coming back to the game, have come back for the PvE mode.
I can
And I
totally
actually
see
think
that. Yeah.
I think some of my friends might be convinced to do a raid or two in PvE who are like never coming back. I have friends who have EOD who quit playing 3 years ago. They have no intention of coming back. Their experience at the time, which made them quit, was like, in order to play the game at the level that I want to, I'm going to have to invest another 1,000 hours into this, and I'm not willing to do that. And so that's it for me, right? Like, there's nothing that can change that for me in the way that the game's formulated. Like, I just don't want to spend the time getting to grips with all the stuff, right? It's not even like getting good, right? It's not like you're necessarily practicing skills. You're like understanding, like learning, like practice, like learning knowledge. It's like getting map knowledge and all the other stuff. And they just didn't want to do it because they got other stuff to do or other games they wanted to play. It's like I'd rather play 50 other games in that time. That's however long each, 20 hours each, whatever. But with PvE, you can get them back in without thinking that they're suddenly going to get shot with M61 from Jupiter, and you're playing against the bots and you're playing together, which is really what matters. And we had a really good time playing Helldivers recently, so it's like it doesn't matter if you're just playing against the AI; it's just about hanging out with them with your mates.
Exactly.
And like once people are back in, I think probably not for my group, but I'm sure there are other groups as well who once they've played PvE and actually like, oh yeah, this is pretty fun, and then the wipe happens, it's like maybe we will check it out.
Yeah.
If
What could
everyone's
go
starting
wrong?
off on a it's like, and then maybe some of them will hate it, maybe some will carry on. You don't know, right? Like it's quite addictive once you get into it. And if you've been playing PvE, you're probably actually better. You actually know the maps. You're able to move around without getting shot off spawn. Stuff like all of this stuff. So I don't know. It may end up being a gateway for some people to actually come back to PvP.
For sure.
Who knows? Who knows?
It's it's like it's just more options, which I just generally think's a win, no matter how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely some validity to less players because you are like splitting the player base. Sure, like if I'm playing PvE, I can't also be playing PvP at the same time. Yes, true. However, all the points you stated, and it's like I'm willing to make that trade off. Like personally, I just think having more players play your game, and experience the game, I think is like a worthwhile trade in comparison to like potentially having less players play a particular mode. It's a bit like the hardcore mode, for example. It's like it is a similar Tarkov experience, a bit more extreme. But if they did have that in there, it's like another way to experience the game. It's like we talked about last week, I think, or one of the previous weeks about difficulty settings and stuff. Like, I just think it's like a good thing. Like I want people to like experience Tarkov. I think it's like a worthwhile experience, and if PvE makes that experience like more approachable, I think that's just like a good thing. Like great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I probably should have said this at the beginning. The other thing that they added this week, which is, a big boon to everybody who's playing on a standard account, is they added PvE mode as a standalone purchase. Finally, it is €20/$20. The European edition is always more expensive for some unknown reason, other than it's a worldwide thing and you can play anywhere on the European versions or whatever. But as a standard account, you can now pay €20 to get PvE mode. I mean, fine. It seems fine. I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I know some people saying like, oh, it's still, I hate to have to pay for that, whatever. It's like, well, the game's been around for a long time. you know, an extra €20, $20, whatever. And like now they've got the local server thing sorted. They can offer that out to everyone. So it's good.
Yeah, I
And then
mean,
there's
you're like,
yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say, you're like paying for a full price game. Like, effectively, the only difference between PvE and PvP is online play. Like, otherwise, you
Yeah.
get the exact same game. Like, it's a $40 upcharge to play multiplayer. Is it? Like, I don't know. This seems like a good deal. If I was an outsider, it seems like a pretty good deal.
Well, you have to have the base game.
Oh, I see. I understand now.
The point that I was about to make was actually on that, which was Crand on Twitter basically said, I wonder if Battle.net would consider making it like PvE only,
A standalone.
a standalone for
Yeah.
people who don't have the base game. And it's like, yeah, €20, $20 to get in and play the PvE mode. You know, why not? No, why not? Especially
Yeah, I
if
mean,
most people are doing it on the local machine.
yeah, PvE edition. Yeah, I mean, I feel like they could probably charge 40. I feel like if you get 60, then it's like, yeah, maybe they should have done differently. Like 40 is like, the I don't know, the standard edition, the new standard edition, and it's just PvE, and then 60 is the Tarkov edition, and it's like what the standard edition was previously. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that would have been it. Like the $20 upcharge is to get multiplayer access, versus how they're doing it now, which is, I guess, now makes more money for them, so that's probably like financially better for them.
Probably, yeah, because they've got a big
Yeah.
standard account base, so that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I say that, but most people are probably EOD. I don't know what the numbers look like on the split. You see EOD all the time because those are the people who are still playing, right? There's probably a lot of standard
Yeah.
accounts out there that like
Oh
may
yeah.
end up actually playing PvE, but because they don't really, you never see them or whatever, it's like it's
Right.
very hard to know. So yeah, I don't know. It's cool. So yeah, if you have a standard account, you can now buy PvE and play that and enjoy like everybody else. I actually think I think it's getting better. I know it's obviously nothing on SPT, but you don't have to mess about and do
Yeah,
stuff or
super
whatever.
easy setup. You got online flea market, which is like a pretty big event. Like, that's pretty cool aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's a nice thing.
I agree. I had one piece of drama.
Uh-oh. Drama alert, ScavTalk
Drama
edition.
alert. One piece of drama, which was that Mr. Desmond Pillack, the one and only, was officially kicked from the streamer Discord.
Cancelled by BSG.
Cancelled by BSG. Because, as he said, I said the state of the anti-cheat is a joke. I mean, he's not factually incorrect. So I think, I don't think it was the message. I think it was more the tone as to the reasons. But is what it is. But yeah, he was removed. They didn't like the way that he was talking about stuff, so they removed him out of there. Even though he's right in some ways. Because I think the thing is, and Jesse's talked about this, right? I have very little experience of this because I don't play with other streamers. I don't play with anybody high profile, and I play in such a way and small enough that I don't get targeted. Thank God. But Jesse's plays on his own or with Velian or whoever, and it's just they're just vibing, doing their thing. And then he plays with Desmond, and it's just crazy. And I'm not surprised that people have speculated that the cheaters do have a list of people that they antagonize or whatever. And I don't watch enough of him to know if he gets annoyed on stream about it particularly or not. I know he posts. The only things I see is him posting clips of him actually killing cheaters who are so bad that he kills them anyway, which is quite funny. But they do go after people who they can get a reaction out of or whatever, or popularize their stuff or stuff. So they go after the big people, they go after the people who are have a reaction and that kind of thing. Whereas somebody like Jesse, and probably I'm too small for it to matter, but somebody like me as well, it's kind of whatever. Don't necessarily take it so seriously. I'm not just gonna punch the screen and rage quit and throw my monitor across the room or anything like that. So it's it's I don't know. It's certainly a thing. It's certainly a thing, and I do think then it contributes towards the perception because I don't really think about cheaters much. There's occasionally, especially in the last couple of weeks, in the late wipe, cheaters kind of died down, right? Because a lot of people who are Timmy guys buying RMT, they're not really playing now. So, or they're playing PvE. Maybe they're playing PvE. Maybe PvE is the biggest, like, anti-cheater like measure that BSG have ever brought in. All the people that needed to buy RMT gear, they're not playing main Tarkov anymore. They're playing PvE. That's funny. I never thought about that.
Well, I was gonna make a joke. What if you just like cheated on PvE to then sell RMT to PvEers?
Great. They should do that. Like.
Oh,
Because then they're not affecting anybody else. That's fine. That's like cheating in an online, in a single player game. Like, go for it. I know there's the flea, but outside of that, you do you. You do you. I don't care. Just stay away from the PvP servers.
That's funny.
Oh,
yeah, that's it. I mean, that's an interesting topic because cheaters are definitely like a very frustrating experience, and it's likely we've all encountered, at the bare minimum, something sus. If you've been playing Tarkov for a long time, you've probably encountered a cheater, and it's just a reality situation. And for someone like, oh, sorry, mic bump. Someone for like Desmond, for example, he has these very strong reactions in general, I would say. So if I was, in my teens going through puberty and I wanted to do a little bit of trolling, want to be a little edgy online, installing some cheats and then stream sniping Mr. Streamer and then, hacking on him and getting him to react and then sharing that clip with all my friends, it's like I could see how something like that would almost like entice or invite you, it's like the idea or like the philosophy that like the things you give more attention to like becomes more reality. So yeah, that's an interesting point because I think that's something you don't really think about if you're like someone like me, for example, or like your quote unquote average person is like that isn't a streamer, you know what I mean, just like a regular person. Is you don't have that sort of like, I don't even know what you call it, that phenomenon of like being a personality and like people getting to like see your live reaction to things, right? It's like a totally different world. And on the flip side, for like the average person too, if you're like hyper fixated on cheating as well, like whether people are cheating or not, as you said earlier, it's like it can really mess up your mental because, as you said, you may not know. Like you're realistically, you don't know, right? You may have like very strong inclinations, and like, yeah, he may be flying in the air, and like by that point, you have enough evidence to you probably know, right? But
exactly.
Most of the time, it's a case of that was kind of sus. I don't know, because you don't have like all the contextual detail. Did he get the audio pop? It's just like there's so much garbage. But anyways, it's like definitely one of those things. Like if you think about it too much, it can really mess with your mental, and it makes the game less enjoyable. Which is why I think like your approach is just kind of like not spending a lot of energy on it is just like, yeah, I don't know. It's
freeing.
I think it is. Like I feel like there's not. I think at best it's like you could maybe cope a bit and be like, oh, that guy might have been cheating. And just move on. You know what I mean? And it can kind of help you because, like, so a lot of times you do want to like improve, but if it's like, dang, I don't know what I could do there, you could just toss it up to cheating.
Exactly.
And he's probably cheating. Just move on. Just, but if you like spend so much time on it, it's just like it makes the game so much less enjoyable. I find, especially.
Exactly, and it is the reason why I stopped looking at profiles. That's exactly the reason why I stopped looking at them months ago. Now I haven't looked at a profile for ages. I forget that it's even in the game. The only time that I ever make an exception is if I'm just like, I want to actually see what the guy was wearing, and like sometimes I'll go in and I'm like, oh, what gun was that? Like it sounded weird. Like I couldn't place it. Like what was he actually using? And that's kind of interesting. But I'm like, don't look at the stats, everyone. We don't want to look at. I don't even want to know. Like I just want to see the guy's loadout. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, I don't know. Like, there was something else that Desmond was talking about as well. was about like streamer mode and about how streamer mode just doesn't really work. And I
Yeah.
misunderstood streamer mode for a long time as well. I have it off again, so I turned it on, right? Because I was like, well, let's just see, and not realizing that it hides my name from me,
Right.
and that is it. Is all it does. And so, if they know what your name is, they figure out your name, then people can like find you or whatever, like, you know, follow you
More
around or
easily.
whatever it is, like much more
Yeah.
easily. And like something that Airwing posted was about how like every Tarkov player has like a unique ID or something, and that because of the weird API, like open access, you could like look it up or whatever. And these like some of
Oh
these cheaty
wow.
communities have like a big list of all the of like streamer IDs. So no matter what you change your name to, you could always look them up on like I don't know Tarkov.dev or something. You know, like I don't think you could use that service necessarily, but like something along those lines to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
see what their name is, and then you know, you then know whether you're in the same raid or not or whatever. Because like, and if you've got the cheats on, then you can see everybody's names above their heads and stuff like that. So it was something to do with that. So he was like, rightly so, saying the streaming mode needs to be improved and like actually just block the name, to block the name from everybody. Like no one should be able to see who it is. It should just say streamer, like it shows for the client. It should show that to everybody else. You know, everyone else in
Mm-hmm.
your raid on the dog tag when you get killed by them, it should just say streamer. Shouldn't
Yeah.
say the name like it's for everybody else. I didn't realize it for ages, so I was just going around with my usual name. It was hidden in my own UI, and everybody else could see my name when I killed them. And
Yeah.
because I didn't change my name because I didn't realize that's what you needed to do. So yeah, it's not the best streamer mode thing ever. It's probably okay for smaller people who are like on the
Mm-hmm.
cusp of
Mm-hmm.
like if you've got somebody bothering you or whatever, like maybe you can fix it that way. But yeah, for the bigger guys, if because of these other like security flaws or whatever in the system, that's like circumventable by the people who are already circumventing to do what they're doing, so they're using these other ways to harass people. So it's it's like I don't know. He makes some valid points, but maybe he has to work on the messaging a little to get more buy-in. I don't know.
Presentation.
Exactly. It's the,
Yeah.
the framing of
The
ideas and
framing. There you go.
concept is key. Is key in
Yes.
life to getting people, on side or whatever. It's
This has been ScavTalk Master Persuasion. Sign up now for your
exactly.
exclusive class.
Yep. So I've been using the SA58 a little bit. Not a lot, just a bit. It was kind of like I was going like, well, what should we use? Like, what guns should we use? And chat was giving up some ideas. And I was like, yeah, maybe this or maybe that. And someone was like, oh, Shorty Fowl. I was like, hey, that's actually a good idea. Let's do that. So I built one. Built a Shorty Fowl. I actually showed it to Church before ScavTalk started, and he was like, "Oh, you didn't change the handguard." And I was like, "No, I didn't. Like, I didn't think it would make that much difference on the short version because, like, we're so used to making like meta guns that, and I think the short one actually probably is meta now. But like the long one, I'm like, oh yeah, you'll change everything. But for the short version, I'm like, you have like such a restricted amount of choices. Like, whatever, I'll just leave
Mm-hmm.
it. And I swapped it over, and I was like, oh, it actually does make a big difference. It's like 7 ergo and like 3 recall or something. I was like, okay, fine. But anyway, I used it in this configuration. Loud build, BMD. For the audio listeners, it's basically a short version of the SA58 or the FAL, as it's otherwise known. 50 round mag with an SE5 and a blast mitigation loud muzzle device on it. The Elcan HCO on the top, which I need to fully test, but I think it's fixed. It's like the Batman scope, the one that's got the little
Yeah.
ears on
I
it.
was
It's
gonna
actually
ask
really
about
nice.
that.
I think the sensitivity thing is fixed on it, but I need to triple check.
Wasn't there there was a sensitivity issue, and then wasn't there also like a
There was a thing
how do
about
you,
it shooting low
yeah,
as
some people were talking
well.
about that. Is that
Yeah, I don't know.
eh,
It felt okay when I was using it, but
okay?
I need to go and do some bit more analysis on it. It felt all right. And yeah, and then like advanced tube, Daniel's defense, because now you don't have to use the MOE butt pad. So you have people in chat saying, "What's the ergo on this thing? 25?" Hell no. That one in particular is 48, and if you change the handguard over, it's like 55.
Hmm.
So there you go.
It's pretty
It's
good, all things
it's pretty
considered.
good. It's pretty good. And I killed a duo with it on streets in a nice little fight in the basically in the stairwell that you go through the back of the like bank building to get to Caban. It's from the Check 15 courtyard kind of thing. There's like that the corner. So if you're looking at how do I describe this? If you're looking at Check 15 and Lexos is further on than that through the building, So you're
I'm trying to remember check 15. Oh yes.
yes, you've got Lexos and Sparger, and then
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's the street, and there's check
Right.
15 on the other side. And then on the other side of that, there's
Mm-hmm.
the big courtyard next to like post office and
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of thing. Yeah. So it's the financial building is the like back the sort of the left hand corner thing, and you can get through there. Anyway, so I just went into the building and heard steps, popped out of the door. There was like two guys coming, started to spray, but they saw me and started firing back. And I didn't kill either of them. So I ran up the stairs, looked out the window and killed one guy, and then had like a bit of a standoff with the second dude, and then came back down and like killed him through the doorway. I didn't actually realize at first that I had done. So I ended up doing a full loop around, and it's quite nice once you know streets and know the map a bit better. Like if you can play it with frames, it's actually all right, because you can go like right to the top of that stairwell, and then you can actually go along and down the other building, and you can come out of the other staircase, which is like kind of cool. So I came out of like a different angle, and I could see the guy was dead on the ground. I was like, okay, we killed them both. But like it was neat, because if I was M62
Mm-hmm.
like the MDR does, it's got a 50 round drum, so which actually really helped in this case. I was like fully out on the drum, and it really helped solos against duos and
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 700 RPM, so it's faster than the MDR. And when you're playing shorty, like the recoil is slightly rougher than the MDR. Like it's just the way it is. But with the loud build, it's actually not too bad. Like the ergo is kind of the same. The recoil is slightly worse, but with the new recoil system, it's like controllable. It's like not that bad. And it was good. It was good fun actually. It was good fun. So I'm probably going to use it a bit more and play around with it, just because it's usable and is like very powerful for solos. It's a bit like having, I mean, because I've been using the RD a bit like in the last couple of weeks, like on and off.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's good, right? But that's like 600 RPM using BP. That's fine. That's all right. And so this thing is 700 RPM using M62. It's like, I know the pen's not quite as high, but M62 packs such a punch on armor damage and on actual real damage as well. Like the difference between 58 damage versus 79 damage can't really be understated, especially in this new world of armor, mitigation, arms tanking like a billion bullets and all of this
Yeah.
stuff. Like it's big. So yeah, I'll probably use a bit more. It seems fun. I've definitely enjoyed the essay like a couple of times, but I've not really focused too much on it. I think like partly because it's
Yeah.
quite an expensive build. Like once
Yeah.
it's like you could do the barter, but it's like 8 weapons parts, and like now because of
Mm-hmm.
everything's so inflated, like this is part of the issue. If you're comparing like a barter to like a fixed price on the traders, the barter used to be quite good, but weapon parts are now, where are they? Weapon parts are now okay. They're actually cheap at the minute, but so they're now like 20,000, which is not too bad. So
It's not
8
too
of
bad.
those is 160k for the barter. When I was looking, they were like 30k. So that's like
Yeah.
240,000 for the barter. And I was like, I don't know whether I could just like buy this myself, because there is a build that you can get which is relatively decent stock RVG. It's got the handguard on it, and then the short version, obviously, and the rail with the 50 round drum already in build, which is the one I'm thinking of. But yeah, I ended up, because it was expensive, I ended up just buying like I think I bought like the one-off Peacekeeper. There was which one was it? I think it was the short version, I believe.
I know she's
Peacekeeper
talking.
4?
Yeah.
Yeah, Peacekeeper 4. So I bought it, and maybe it was part of the event as well. Maybe that was why, because I bought it for, because that's now 530 ruble. Sorry, $530, which is something like 65k, 70k. So the actual base of the gun is like really cheap now because of the event. Normally it's like twice the price. It's normally like $1,030 or so. It's normally more like 130k. So
Cool looking one.
right now it's probably better off to just grab the one from Peacekeeper. But yeah,
Oh,
it was fun. It was actually good. Like, and I like using different stuff. Like, I don't necessarily like using the same gun every time. I've never been like the
yeah.
MTI. I've never got on with it that well. I do enjoy using the spear. I do say like I do like using the spear. It is fun, but it's nice to run a drum. Nice to run a
Mm-hmm.
drum on a gun with a bigger mag. And if you come against 2 people, like the 25 rounders, they're tight unless you're really really accurate. They're a bit squeaky.
Yeah, I like this. I was using this in particular, the barter one that you were just talking about with the 8 weapon parts. Like the kind of the problem with these barters, like there's another one at Mechanic 3 for 12 weapon parts, and it's like I guess it's a longer SA58. doesn't have like as good parts on it as some of the other options. But anyways, the point is I was going to get to is because you have to buy so many of this item, the pricing fluctuates a lot on the market because some other person maybe also trying to do this part. So if they buy 8 and then you refresh, it's like, oh, suddenly the price is now at 35K, and it's like no longer worth to do this because by the time you get down to your 8, you're going to be in like the 50s and 60s. So it's like, it's actually kind of annoying for that reason alone. But if you do like, get the weapon parts for 20K ish, under 20K ideally, it's a pretty good barter, especially in the early wipe because you can't get a lot of these parts because a lot of the SA58 parts, like the good parts, especially the rail, for example, to put
Cover is a
on
pain.
a sight in the standard position, not a front rail, your atypical receiver rail is very valuable because then you can also mount scopes if you wanted to. And yeah, that's like locked behind mechanic 4, which is like level 40. It's like there's just no way you're gonna get that early wipe. And it's because of the recoil changes and everything, like it felt pretty good using it this wipe, the shorty. Like I used one like in the mid game, it's probably like 20s, 30s, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think I mostly used like a red dot. Like I specifically used it to do the Jaeger quests on factory. We had to kill PMCs in the office. I just like, I got the most beefiest stuff like back then. That was the Osprey armor. Like you could buy the armor off the flea, but then you had to use like your own plates in there. It had drum mags that I bought. I bought some type of helmet. Was it like the LZSH? I think whatever the one that's like
Oh, is
class
it the
4.
LSH Z2 DTM? Oh no, not that one. Or is it the other one?
I don't
There's another one as well, which is it depends on which one. There's LSH Z2 DTM, which has a class 4 face shield.
Yeah,
And then
that's
there's
the
the
one.
other one, which is class 4, but it has a class 3 face shield.
Oh. Yeah, no, it was the class 4, I'm pretty sure. I just love how I mentioned vaguely something, you're like, oh, is it the string of letters and numbers? It's like, what has
Yeah.
Tarkov done to your brain?
Terrible things. Many terrible things. It can't be good for the human soul. It really can't. To look at something in this much detail. I mean, that's just how it works for me to a T. Oh dear. Why am I like this? But anyway.
Yeah. It's so, I don't know, it's an interesting weapon because I think it's like positioned in a place where, because like the base gun itself is kind of hard to get a hold of, if I recall. I think they still have it locked behind
Well, you
a
can buy them on
peacekeeper
the
quest.
flea, in theory.
Yes, you can.
So there is that. And sometimes you find the shorty ones. Sometimes you find ones with rails as well,
Yes,
occasionally.
you
Because they come off
can.
raiders, but yes, people buy them out normally.
You can get them in the marked room as well, like the one with the
Like there's one there
rails.
now. There's one there now for 75k flea.
Yeah, I can
Short
see that.
version with a rail. Like
That's a steal right there. That is a
it
steal.
is.
You should be selling those for more. You probably should be stripping them down and selling them, but that's a whole nother ball game. But if you are going to sell the shorty, they should be selling for a lot more because they are more valuable. But
The extreme duty cover on its own is 40,000 rubles on the flea. So
yeah,
over half the price of the gun
yeah,
if they'd taken that off and sold it. But the thing is, no one cares at this point, right? And
no one cares at this
this is the,
point.
this is the
Yeah.
thing about these opportunities. Like next wipe's going to be interesting. We're going to be able to go back to the good old days of like you find somebody who's put like a Saiga 9 on the flea, but it's got an RK3 grip on it, and
Oh
you
my
buy the
god.
thing, and then you take off the grip, and then you do the thing, and then you put the grip back on, and you sell it, and they sell them separately, and you just like stonks.
Economy, flea markets, capitalist simulator 101.
I loved it when Tarkov was like that, so I'm actually quite happy that some of that's come back. I'm one of those weird people that enjoys that kind of thing, as is
Next,
probably not a surprise to anyone at this point.
next stream is just all on the menus at the flea market. Flea market, you're gonna do like a split your screen in half. A flea market on one side, you're gonna like render the game in some weird aspect ratio, like 4:2 or something, or no, wait, 2:4. It's like, and then on the other side you have like spreadsheets, just like
Yeah, just
tracking.
all charts, like
Yeah.
live ticking charts.
Uh,
Boy, you can make so much ruble, I'm telling you. So
It's
the other
funny.
thing that I've been looking at a little bit, and this is kind of like the last thought that I have, really, the last big thought, and I'm still in the early stages of this thought process in general, and it was stumbling upon a No Generals video, which I don't know whether you know of No Generals in particular, but like his name appears,
Yes.
here and there in the scene, and I've rated him before once or twice, and people have suggested like, oh, go over and see No Generals, whatever. And I've watched him a little bit in the past, and I'm just like, hey, this man's really good. But it was quite funny because there was a video that he had on his YouTube channel, and I think he's actually getting his YouTube channel is growing quite quickly actually, because he's like, super good, and puts out like some interesting stuff as well about like how to do certain things. Like the Giga Chats need to lean into that more. Like there's a whole untapped like meta of like how to do these things and how to like be good and do the stuff that they're doing, right? Like
Yeah.
different people have leaned into it at different times. I know like Rengar used to do most of this stuff. Then like Glorious has done some of it. Like Landmark doesn't really need to, so he doesn't bother because he just does like raid highlight stuff, and those get good viewership anyway. But there's like there's lots of different people who could lean into that and
Oh
do
yeah.
it, and he's like doing that in some way. But there was a video of him because he was playing with Jesse, and it was basically like blowing Jesse's mind or whatever, because Jesse like dies really early in dorms, and so he just goes and watches his stream, and Jesse's just like losing his mind because he's like, to be fair, it is actually insane. There's like 4 or 5 PMCs. There's like scavs coming in, and just like watching the guy play, like it's insane. It's actually just completely mental. And it just makes you question like everything that you do. You're just like, how do you even learn to play like this? Like, what are the steps? Like, what are the actual, like, other than just playing a lot? Because you can play a lot and still be bad. Like
Yeah.
to play like that. And that's why I've always kind of admired the guys who are like really good, because even just playing a lot doesn't necessarily get you there, right? It's the same reason why
Absolutely.
professional sports people have coaches and stuff, right? Who are ex-players themselves, who weren't necessarily top players, didn't necessarily win anything, but you have to be good at teaching or be delivering the message in the right way, as we were talking about before. You have to get somebody to be receptive about the mental game, whatever. But anyway, within like gaming and stuff, it's like you have to be practicing things in the right way. And this is always the same way with me, because like the only time that I'm not like hyper competitive with Tarkov, that really. Like I'd like if I'm playing, I'd like to improve. That's fine. But the times that I've been hyper competitive are kind of in the past for me, when I was playing RTS, and it's like you've got to go through the process of building up, looking back at your deaths and all that kind of stuff. But even that kind of only takes you so far. I feel like I'm sort of at the limit of where I can be based upon my own analysis, unless I'm really going to be actually, I don't know. Like, let's be honest. Like, me on my own, I'm probably at the limit of where I can actually get to in FPS. Like, I'm not. I don't have enough experience of like other FPSs competitively to like improve my game any further from here, like by myself. And so I really will have to lean on other people, and like seeing how other people do stuff is always like eye opening in some ways, because it always teaches you something new. And that's the same for everything, right? Like if you watch somebody
Oh
else
yeah.
edit as well, even for like edit a video, you're like, oh, what's that shortcut? Like, oh, how did you do this? Or like, oh, they do this in this way. That's super interesting. And it's like you get stuck into the patterns of the way that you do things, which is a long-winded way of basically saying that it kind of inspired me to think like, what is he doing? Like, I'm never going to be as good as him, but maybe I can be better than I am now. And what are the processes of doing that? And one of the things that he talked about quite a bit is about putting lean on the mouse. So I know lots of people do the crossed leans, right? So you have like the Q and E is like it goes the way that you wouldn't think, because it allows you to lean out. But I've never really I tried it a bit, like back in the day, and we talked about it at the time. I think like 2.5 years ago or something. Whenever I tried it, and it didn't really help for me, because in Tarkov you have to circle strafe to do anything. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
go left and then right. So no matter which way you have the lean keys round, it's going to interfere on the way out or the way back in, kind of no matter what. And that's a philosophy that No Generals looks at and says, well, I've now got lean on my mouse because I can then control all of my movement with my left hand, and I'm not trying to do leans with I'm not trying to press a lean and then also you can just about do it. And the UK streamer Miniman as well has like talked about putting lean on the mouse too, and about how good it is. And it's quite intriguing. Like it kind of works in tandem, I think, with the way that Tarkov's mechanics work, sort of, because you can put like, from what it looks like, and as I said, I haven't actually tried this yet, and maybe I'll come back like next week and be like, hey, I tried it, and like this is my findings,
Yeah.
whatever. Like I'm thinking about doing something about it. maybe even piece of content about it or whatever, like depending on how it goes. But it was like the way that he seemed to have it set up from the latest video that I could find is that he has regular lean on his mouse. So like the thumb buttons, left and forward and backward thumb buttons, and then he's got slow lean on Q and E, just straight up. And when you press them together, you get this like fast lean. I don't know whether that's still in the game. I think it might be.
I think I saw this. Yeah.
I think it might be. But it also gives you. It means you don't have to like, because I have to like to do slow lean for me is a right pain, because I have to hold. I'm still holding Alt.
Yeah.
Like my controls are a real mess. Let's be honest. Like
Yes.
especially around the Alt key, they're
I'm
just
glad
terrible.
someone said it.
My keys are terrible because I don't like. So I have middle click. Because I have like middle mouse for optics. So I don't like using free look on middle mouse because I use it because I've had it forever for like change scope zoom because I did in PUBG,
Yeah.
which is where all my original controls came from in Tarkov. So I don't have free look there. I have free look on Alt because free look on Alt is where it also was in PUBG because originally I think I had it on DayZ on Alt. But that means that anything that's got an Alt key selector on it, like slow lean for me, I can't move my mouse while I'm doing them because otherwise I free look and it gets locked there.
Oh yeah. That's
So,
not
which
good.
is like really nasty. It's like really, really nasty. And so I don't use slow lean that often.
Yeah.
Unless I'm like really setting up. So it's quite deliberate and it's not on the fly. It's not intuitive. It doesn't feel good. It's bad. So, but if I can like move some of it, because what have I got on my mouse? I've got like hold breath and like change fire mode and actually like shoulder swap. So that's, I don't know. We'll have to see. I have to change a few things, but it's not like necessarily that. Shoulder swap is like kind of critical, but it's not that bad. So then freeing up slowly into just being on like Q and E might actually be quite good. So I don't know. I'm gonna have a try with it, I think, and see. But because like in one of the videos, he was talking to Jesse as well about it, just being like, have you got this stuff set? And like he was like, you can just do better. Like don't just settle for like crappy keybinds, basically. Like you can relearn this stuff. It's not like you will be able to relearn it, and you will be better. You will be a better player for it. So like I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that a little bit, I think. But I actually might end up watching a bit more NoGenerals because like in some of the videos that I've watched, he actually has like a little mini commentary in the top right. And I've done this before on some videos that I've done, but like obviously I'm nowhere near as good. So it's like really useful to get insight into the thought process of the person while they're actually doing the things right. And he puts things like, I throw the grenade. I throw the grenade, and the guy's going to re-peek, so hold the angle. And then he waits, and the guy peeks, and he holds it and kills the guy. And then it's like, hear footsteps here, so like push up the staircase and like take space. Take control of the area, like things like this, like stuff that I don't necessarily think about with those like. I'm like thinking more about like the fight, not necessarily about like where I can go. Like it's all of that like background stuff. It's like, if I throw the nade here, I can move to this area and open this door, which then means that I can either move into here or into there. Like I have somewhere to go when I need to reload. Like it's all of that stuff. And I think just like watching that process, like there was some things that were like blowing my mind. It was absolutely crazy. And even Jesse was going nuts on one of them. Was he was like reloading, but he was like quick, like not even quick peeking necessarily. He was like quick peek. It was almost like a quick peek down the corridor where the guy was shooting. But he was like trying to get his like gun barrel to go out of the corner of the wall without any intention of actually going out there, just to get the guy to continue shooting at him.
Yeah.
And Jesse was like, he's peeking while he's reloading the damn gun. Like, what the hell? Like, this is insane. And it was bonkers. Just like, running backwards and forwards, like across the corridors, try and get the guy to waste his ammo so that then he could reposition while the guy's reloading and stuff. It's like, it's all of these layers that like I don't think about when I'm in these fights. Like it's crazy. It's really good. So like I might watch a bunch more. Like I've seen a little bit of it and I was like, this is so cool. So yeah, I don't know. Like it's just sort of inspired me to kind of like be a bit more thoughtful about improving and getting better and that kind of thing. And now that you have the ability to practice in arena, right? Like you can actually try this stuff out rather than being like, oh, I'm going to have to spend 4 hours playing streets, gear up 8 times because I tried some GigaChad move and died, 6 times in a row or whatever. It's like I could go and try some of these things out on arena where there's like no stakes. You can just die like 40 times in Last Hero in 10 minutes and get better that way. Actually get muscle memory over some of these things, like change all the keybinds up and then be like, right, we're just going to sit here and play this for an hour. And then that will like basically get you to where you need to be. Like it's cool. And there's like tools now in Tarkov to actually allow you to do this. It feels like maybe the I don't know, the level is a little bit more like what am I trying to say? It's like it's fairer, right? There's the opportunity for progression for everybody. It almost feels like not like the old days. Like I used to feel in the old days, like all the guys who played, like they played on labs like 24/7, and then they put labs behind like a 250,000 ruble card, and it
Yeah,
was like we
gotcha.
can never
Yeah,
catch up now because like it was too
that's yes.
expensive. And this was like a long time ago, but when that was actually quite a lot of money. And if you weren't good at the map, right, you were going to be dropping like 1 million rubles or like 2 million rubles in like 10 raids, and you just didn't have it. You actually didn't have enough resources to participate. That's actually not the case anymore. But that's partly why I feel like the game's maybe like flatter and more level. There's opportunities to improve in PvP and other places and arena and whatever. Like the game's maybe more. There's more resources out there than there ever have been for people to improve if they want to. But the game's also sweatier than it ever has been as well. So it's kind of like
Mhm.
there's two sides of the same coin. But it's interesting, and I quite like his attitude too. From what I've seen so far, he's like very very chill. He's got a very
Yeah.
chill attitude to him. So yeah, shout out to him, and yeah, inspiring some interesting stuff. So I'm gonna maybe try the leaning thing at least. Just start with that and see what happens. Maybe try it in arena for a bit, get used to it, the muscle memory, and then see if it helps and see if I feel like it's much better. And we'll see.
That's actually really interesting because this week for me has been just kind of like bleh. Like I was telling Giga, it's just feels like it's went by extraordinarily fast, and so I haven't really had time. Like, well, that's not entirely true, but I haven't made time to do some of the like various things I've been wanting to do project wise, and yeah. So I was trying to think like, oh man, what am I gonna talk about for ScavTalk? Because like I have nothing, and so I thought, oh, maybe I'll talk about like this idea of like, um, what are the things you can do to sort of like optimize your gameplay. And it's interesting because for the longest time I've wanted to do, not for the longest time, but well, I guess kind of, yeah, I've been wanting to try some like unorthodox keybinds. Like the classic one is replacing spacebar, like because it's used for jump, which is like kind of a not very efficient. Like it takes up the mass majority, relative to all the other keys. It's like
Mm.
the largest key, but we're gonna like dedicate it to jumping. It's like there's got to be a better use for a key. And so I was like, oh, what if I use it for like an alt? It's like a modifier key, kind of like how I actually just as like directly ripped from Dota 2's. I at some point was like in Dota 2, I'm gonna put set space as a universal modifier key. So that way, I can effectively have two binds on the same key, like Q, like if I hit
Mm.
just Q, it's gonna cast a spell. If I hit space and then Q, it's gonna like quick cast it or whatever. Um I was like, oh, let me just do the same thing for Tarkov, but and maybe that works. I guess it depends on the game too, because it's interesting for FPSs in particular. Like you kind of have to have your middle finger, ring finger, and index finger resting on like AWD.
Unless you move it.
Unless you right, but like that's kind of like your resting position because like
Mm.
you want to be able to move like at any given point in time, right? Like it's just like it's very vital. And like oftentimes like in the example you were saying with NoGenerals, he was like reloading while trying to like fake peek, like bait the guy to keep shooting, keep him still like engaged. And so he's got to like, you know be moving forward and like positioning his camera so he can just use like the W key. But then also, he's got to like move his index finger to hit R to reload. Presumably it's on reload. So like he can't also be hitting W and D at the same time, right? Otherwise, like, maybe you could like fudge it and like smash multiple keys together with just the index finger. You know what I mean? Or you could have to like take your middle finger off W, put it on D, and then use your ring finger for W and then your index finger for R. And like you could do that, but like, it's something about the keyboard I find, and compared to like a controller, for example. It's like in the context of FPS games, especially, it's just like you actually like you're using three fingers for only like primarily movement, and yes, those
Mm.
fingers leave those keys to hit other stuff, but they're like you know what I mean? It's like
I
but
know
you
what you mean.
always
Yeah.
are resting on that. So it makes it quite limiting because then you have your pinky and thumb, which are like kind of like your flexible ones, like jump for space, or like maybe use it to hit V or C,
Yeah,
perhaps.
crouching, running, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's like you're kind of limited though, um, in that aspect. Like it'd be like for me, it'd be very uncomfortable to hit G for with my thumb personally. Like I don't, I don't know. I prefer hitting G with my index finger, right? So I gotta take my finger off. So I can't like be moving to the right with my index finger by hitting D and also pull out a grenade by hitting G. So I have to like take my middle finger off W and put it on D and then hit G, And it's just like things like this, like it makes it kind of like, I think we're used to it, but I think because I've been playing Elden Ring a bit, and
Mm.
my friends are mostly playing it with controller, and it's just like, you know, thinking about the controller and how like the game was effectively made for controller, and it's kind of like been mapped on the keyboard. Like it's not that great of experience, It's like kind of subpar, and it's the advantage of having like the way the controller is laid out, which a lot nowadays I think the controllers often have back buttons that you can utilize
Yeah.
your fingers for. At least the third party ones you could buy, which is pretty nice. But yeah, I don't know. You just have like the 4 buttons for each thumb and also movement, but it's kind of has a similar problem. But depending on the way the game's structured and made, it feels better. Whereas like Tarkov, like you realistically, like you could map it on a controller, but it's probably not gonna be great. We're going to have to make a lot of like weird compromises,
Yeah.
Like you probably have to have like a modifier key, like left trigger changes the entire keyboard when it's held down, or the entire controller functions. So I don't know. I think it's interesting that you talk about this because they're definitely the main I think I did try this for a time. I did actually, switching space to effectively a modifier key, and I think I don't remember what I put jump on. There's something like control, like it's just like complete like a new concept. Like the common, if I do end up changing space out for jump, the common one is mouse wheel scroll down,
Mhm.
because games like Counter-Strike and Apex Legends actually is probably where I got it from. Is like bunny hopping was a thing at some point. I guess it still kind of is, but not like it used to be. And it was like vital to have your scroll wheel down on jump, so you could just like spam your mouse down to like
As soon as you land, just yeah.
exactly, just like always get the input. Um, Instead of having to do manual space and like time it and stuff. So, but because Tarkov is Tarkov and the way it is, like that didn't really work. I think the issue I ran into is like when you go to loot something, or like a context menu pops up for the door. If I wanted to scroll down to like kick it open, which I wouldn't do, but if I did want to, I would end up jumping or something weird like this. Or like
Yeah.
I dropped the backpack and I wanted to like pick it up, and if I
Just search
scrolled,
it, but not take it. That's the
yeah,
same with armor now. If you want to modify it in Raid, you have to use this context menu, yeah.
yeah. So
Or
it just
healing a
like
particular limb. That also breaks it now.
yeah, yeah. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I can't really do this without major compromises, and that's like not the point. Anyways, I just think it's interesting because I think I've seen that video from No Generals at some point, like recently, the one you're talking about with the like
Me.
using the key binds to like quick peek or
Mm.
something, like the particular setup, which I think they like patched that. I think someone
I
said,
think they
and
like the speedy peak, but I still think
yeah,
it's
the
like a
Ferrari
good
peek.
the Ferrari peak, but I think it's still got like a good control set. Yeah.
Yeah. But because Tarkov does have so many gosh dang keybinds, and like,
Mhm.
the technical debt of them adding keybinds, like in just the latest patch, we got, latest major update, we got left peeking, shoulder swapping, just like another
Mhm.
keybind you got to add on.
Yeah, shoulder swap, like vault buttons now that we've got. Like it's continuing to add. Like what's the bipod button gonna be for the
Oh
next
my
wipe?
god,
Like
don't even
it's
get me
just
started on the
we
bipod
just add
button.
more and more and more and more. It's crazy.
Hold B to bring up context menu to select your action. Do you want a bipod or do you want to check mag? Can't even
Mm.
imagine what's going to be this time. Double
Yeah.
tap B for bipod, one tap for, prone, hold B to check mag, whatever. But anyways, I was just gonna say it. I think because arenas came out, it's made that a lot easier because that was like the reason why I used it for a bit. I did like this massive overhaul keyboard. It's like I'm just gonna brute force it, and it just felt awful because you have like so many years of muscle memory being like jump is space. It's like the universal computer gamer language, right? It's like that's like always the keybind. So it's like you gotta like retrain your brain, and but also playing Tarkov in like the middle of the wipe, and also like it's an economical game, so you're like losing resources because of your keybinds being changed. Like it's not a great feeling, you know. And I can totally see why it put me off to the process, and others like yourself just may feel like I don't know. There's like some type of like it's not a cost sunk fallacy. It's like what would you even call it?
Mm,
It's like you don't want to take the short term
yeah, it's just
suffering
exactly. It's just
over.
like an investment loss kind of thing. You got to invest time
Yes,
in a thing to then reap the rewards later.
yes.
So, but yeah,
Um,
maybe sunk cost is right as chat says, right? It's like you're so deep into your own keybinds, you're like, oh, I don't want to go back now, and like it's two mountains, right? You've reached the peak of your tiny, short little mountain. You got to walk back down the mountain to get up the tall one. It's
yes,
the classic problem.
yeah. Because I think there is some like real serious optimization because you do have some pretty decent tools with the double tap, hold. You can use like combination keybinds for certain stuff if you have like some software or mouse software or whatever. You might be able to like assign a key like O to like a mouse
Yeah.
button, so then you could use that. Like there's probably a lot of stuff, and it's just I'm sure there's like a lot you could do there. And I think it is one of those things like for Tarkov to like bring it back to my main point, my grand big giant point. After I listed all the tangents, is there's a lot of things like Tarkov's a hard game, and there's a lot of things to optimize, and it's like where do you start? And I want to say like the quote unquote
Your
correct
mic's
way.
gone. Oh no,
uh,
it's back. It's back.
oh,
Your
it's
mic just
back.
cut out then. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I want to say the quote unquote correct way is to set up like have a good foundation, you know, um, with having keybinds that are good, like a good start, you know, because I think the base keybinds they're okay, they're serviceable, but I think there is some minor optimization. But like specifically of like mouse and mouse sensitivity, like I find because Tarkov is a weird game because when you sprint, you do get like a mouse penalty, a mouse speed penalty. So
Mm.
like you almost want your sensitivity, your quote unquote hipfire sensitivity. Well, I guess that is the technical term to be a little bit on the higher side. That way you can sort of finesse some of these like sprints. I wouldn't think it would be optimal to have it your hipfire sensitivity really low. Because when you end up sprinting, you get like a massive, I don't even know what the reduction is. It's gotta be like 30% reduction or something. Like it's pretty big. And you wouldn't want to be like constantly picking up and dragging your mouse, slamming it down to like do a 180 turn. Like you want to be able to just like almost effortlessly do that 180 turn. Um, and what I mean, like the majority of time, a lot of times you're going to be ADS when you're shooting your gun, right? I mean, not
Yeah.
every time, but probably on average most of the time.
And I think
So
most of the time now, especially given point fast sucks.
that's true. Yeah, I have forgot about that. Yeah, so they're even more relevant then. Yeah, I mean, I would say having like um, a little bit higher of a hip fire, and but then having a relatively reasonable ADS sensitivity because it's really not necessary to be able to do like a 360 while ADS, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
I don't need all that real estate, And so I think in general, for especially a game like Tarkov 2, where like precision can actually matter a lot. You know, like if we're talking like the helmet example, hitting them in the face versus hitting them in the top of the head. Like it would kind of suck to have a bit of a mishap, and that may, you know, probably could be less likely to happen if you had a bit of a lower sensitivity, you know, because you would have more room for play, a bit more room for error. And so, like, one tiny increment to the right equals this many pixels versus equaling a lot less pixels if it was lower. So, yeah, I don't know. Just something like there because there is a lot to Tarkov. It's like, where do you start? And I feel like for me, like the correct, quote unquote, the correct place, there really isn't a correct place, but like the place I think you should start is just like trying to optimize your like core FPS mechanics, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, your survival is going to depend on combat largely, which is the base of the game, right? Like that's the core of the game. So, and how do you survive? Well, you shoot the bad guy typically. You know, it's like scav, I shoot the bad guy. You know, it's not entirely true. Yes, you can just like stealth about, but there's gonna be, depending on your goals, you know, you're gonna have to like run into scavs or bosses. So really, like, yeah, you can optimize your loadouts and this and that and stuff. So it's like and like learning the maps, all that stuff, totally valid. Absolutely, should definitely do it. But I think having a good base is really important. And like as you said, a bit under like valued in the Tarkov creator eco space. Like I think it's great that people like NoGenerals are sort of like providing this knowledge base that's like definitely lacking in Tarkov, but you know, maybe for various reasons, but there is a lot of room for that stuff, and I think it's very helpful.
The problem is that if you're not sure how tall the mountain is, it's hard to want to make the climb down from your existing short one if you're not sure if the other one is taller. Until somebody else goes and, you know, treads that ground on purpose and goes, "Hey guys, it is actually much better up here." And
That's
you
a good
go,
point.
"Okay, well, it
Yeah.
worked for him, so maybe I will give it a go." And like, there's quite a few people being like, you know, this is good. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, like having changed and saying, "Hey, this is works a lot better." So that kind of gives me the confidence, because otherwise I wouldn't do it, right? It's like too much. It's too much effort for me to test. Whereas for somebody who plays like all day or is a full time streamer, they can
Yeah.
probably test that stuff a bit more readily, right? Like it's going to take me some dedicated effort to even just get like halfway there. But for someone else, like, yeah, who's like playing more than me, they could probably test it out more easily and figure out whether it's worth it or not. So I think that's, yeah, I think that's where the value is. I think it is good value though. It's good.
Yeah. And the first thing you can do to optimize your play is our sponsor, Lethal Gaming. One giant ploy to shout out the sponsor.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
all. It's, yeah, exactly. The
No,
whole
but
segment.
this was the mouse pad I was talking about last week that I actually
Oh,
probably want to like swap to, because I tried. So they Lethal Gaming Gear was kind of to send us what, like various mouse pads. I got three. How many did you get? I think I got
I
two
got three.
different ones. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, because I already had one, and it was more of the speedy edition. Which, by the way, great packaging too, because some depends on what you get, but some I've had experiences with mouse pads where it's like they come and shipped and they're like rolled up in this tiny tube packaging, and the mouse pad is like permanently, you know, like curved. You know what I mean? It's like super annoying. So like I like that this packaging is a box, like a flat box, so the mouse pad's like perfectly pristine, square, symmetrical, no weird curvature that's permanently attributed to it. But yeah, so this is the Venus, and um this was the one that's like, I think it's a hybrid, and it actually like feels, out of using all the various ones, like I just kind of been lazily using one of the later products um in the that I received. Um just haven't switched back to that one yet, but yeah, it was just like, man, I I would have thought oh, you know, out of all my choices, let me pick the fastest mouse pad. But I feel like the hybrid one, that's a bit more control. It's not like super grippy, but it's grippy enough that you get the best of both worlds. You know, you can do those quick turns on your so when you're sprinting, and then when you need to get those precision headshots, you have a little bit of extra grip to it that makes it like really nice for those like micro adjustments. You know, there's a whole like space. You know, we're talking about optimization. It's like the idea like you want to use your whole hands when you're playing. Like you use your arm to do
Yeah.
like these big movements, like we're talking about the sprinting, and then you use your wrists to like do these like flicks, to like, you know, kind of like 90 degrees turns, pivots, whatever. And then you use your fingers and you like, you know, micro adjustments for like the mouse to get those pixel perfect thing. And that's like the trifecta of like mouse enthusiasts, you know, getting that perfect, because there's like all these different grips. People, you know, palm grip, claw grip, and they all kind of like do the same thing. But the idea is like in general, if you could utilize all of those strengths, because like palm grip, I think is like more arm driven. You know, it's like you put the weight of your arm almost on your
Through the mouse.
yeah, and like I guess like you depending on the mouse, I guess you could have your wrists off the mouse pad, and you know maybe that's less important. Maybe sometimes you have it on there, sometimes you don't. Like you sort of like plant your wrist down, and then it's like you're using your wrists more. But um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm just yapping at this point. I
Was
forgot
it
what the point
your
was there.
fingertip palm grip? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure because like I'm kind of broken because I'm like an ex-RTS player. So as I said
Yeah.
previously, like I never did the big movements. Like most of the games I played, never really did those big movements. So it's like I've had to like relearn, and it's actually relatively recently that I was like, again, another one of those other things where I was like, I'm just gonna like focus on like not having my hand on the desk. Like that was part of the problem, that I was like anchoring my hand around like my wrist the whole time. Not only makes your hand actually hurt a little bit playing FPS, but it's also just not very good. I mean, like a case in point is like back when I was playing PUBG back in the day, I used to play with like a wrist support mouse pad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was before PUBG because I was playing RTSs or whatever. And so I was like, okay, well, this is good because, like, you know, I don't want my wrist just like floating. I'll just like have it supported, and that actually worked really well. When I moved over to playing PUBG, every time I tried to like do a spray, I'd like pull my mouse down and it would get like stuck on the wrist support because I couldn't
Mm,
go down far enough, right? And like my
yeah.
hand was like not far enough up to actually do a full spray with certain guns. So I ended up having to like get rid of it. And I like kind of relearn, and I just sort of like half-heartedly relearn like putting my hand down on the thing because I was still playing some. Like it was just a mess. So now I've had to like actually learn like using my arm properly, and it has helped. It has helped, and I think again playing arena helped with that because
Oh
doing
yeah.
it just in normal Tarkov, like you can get lazy and then you get into a fight and then you die and then you're like, oh, and then you don't learn it quick enough. So it's just not reinforcing, right? So you just end up playing the same mediocre FPS or the same mediocre FPS performance,
Yeah.
like again and again and again and again, which is like kind of what led me to this point. Because I'm just like, how do I improve from here without putting in like a ton more hours? Like, can we be smart about this and do whatever, right? Keybinds, hardware, whatever it might be, changing, you know, grips, or even just like thought process and game sense in terms of Tarkov to like improve the game without playing 10 more hours a week or whatever. So, yeah, maybe it's possible. Maybe it's possible. Even I can get better.
Yes, even you can achieve your Tarkov dreams. And yeah, like you said with Arena now, it's just like it's never been easier.
Mm-hmm. What I think. That's what I think.
I guess that's kind of it
Hey.
for this cast. I mean, kind of waiting on BSG to. I mean, I'm assuming a podcast is in the near future. I would think they just had a like a dev versus pro players for Tarkov Arena stream that they did on their channel not too long ago. I think it was like over the weekend. Um, but nothing really.
I haven't watched that, and apparently, I think it was Ash in chat who was saying earlier that apparently there was like an impromptu interview with like Apple because they had some technical problems, and the way that he was talking sounded like the wipe was more like mid-August or something. I need like that's complete hearsay at this point. I need to go and actually watch it properly. I haven't seen it myself. That's just what was stated by somebody. So we're just like waiting out for that. Really, it's like it's all about the wipe. I really don't want it to happen like on the 10th of August because that would suck. I'm not as like multiple booked as I was last year. But the fact that they did it again in August is like really annoying because there's basically this like LAN that I'm going to, which is the one I went to last year, and it's on the same dates, and the wipe is also looking like it might be on the same dates. It's just like, God damn it! Like, why 2 years in a row? Come on, man, just put it back in June. Like, why? Why August? What's the point of having a long wipe and a short wipe? But anyway, hopefully, if it's a bit later than that, then that'd be perfect for me. Honestly, it would be perfect if the wipe was on, let's say, the 13th or the 14th of August, like the Tuesday or the Wednesday in the middle. That would be like perfect.
BSP, if you're listening, it would be perfect if it was on these
It would be perfect. Yes, yes. Or even that Thursday, the 15th. That'd be good. I've got stuff that I'm doing on the 10th and stuff I'm doing on the 31st. So, I just don't want like, if I can help it, I wouldn't want that 2-week period around, overlapping over any of those things. It's kind of okay if it gets towards the end, but like the first week in particular, I definitely don't want anything overlapping with that if I can help it. It's just, it is annoying, right? At least we kind of know in advance. And it's not as bad as it was last year for me because I had literally like a family holiday backing into. No, it was the other way around. It was a LAN. There was the LAN in question backing into a family holiday. It was also a week long, and the wipe happened literally like lunchtime of the day that I was about to go to the LAN, and I was gonna leave for the LAN in the car at like 2 p.m. and the wipe like patched and came through at like 1:15 or something. It was like obnoxious timing. It was like possibly the worst, like out of all the days they could have picked in the year, it was probably the single worst piece of timing of all time. So this time we did all of our holidays in May and avoided that. So at least it's just this LAN, but it'll be a right pain if it's over the top of that because it's just I'll only be able to go for like a bit or whatever. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna have to go and listen to that interview and sort of get an idea of what it was because I was meaning to watch it, but I haven't had a chance yet. So.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that. So that's interesting.
But yeah, we're just waiting on the wipe, really.
Yeah.
On the wipe.
Oh, anything else for a wrap up, Kiko?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think then good otherwise. Actually hot here for a couple of days, and maybe we'll go back to being raining again. We've had like the worst July ever. It's literally just rained the past like 2 weeks non-stop. It's been bad.
I would take that. Yesterday I had to be outside to did some various things, and it was just insanely hot, Giga. Like I had, it's been a long time since I had something like this, but I had sweat dropping from my forehead into my eyes, Giga.
I was going to say, you had to be outside? What's going on?
I know.
Oh my God.
It's serious when you know you gotta be outside. But yeah, it was just like, I tried my hardest to avoid the sunlight, but it was inedible. And once the sun came out, I was just like, yeah, that's when the sweat hit the eyeballs. That was not fun. I'm ready for winter. But otherwise, outside of that, thanks for tuning in. Shout out to Lethal Gaming Gear for a sponsor. Use promo code ScavTalk for 5% off if you are in the market for PC components, especially mice and mouse pads, various things. I got lots of good stuff. Also, we are on various podcast platforms. There's Pocket Casts, Apple Cast, Google Cast. I forgot to include that icon in this new thing that I'm gonna fix later. Amazon Music. Like if it's a podcast platform, like a popular one, we're probably on there. So check that out if that is your fancy. And otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
Catch you later.